Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 138. It's Wednesday, the 6th of September. Dennis Schrader here with Kasper Ozalowski, and as you can hear it, it's happened again. Down with the flu. Melbourne right now. There's an epidemic. It's like Saving Private Ryan. People lying all over the streets. Kasper somehow has avoided it. I've taken everybody down, including my family and my girlfriend. Again, this is the second time I'm going through the fun of this. So, I don't know, Cass. It's kind of like a raspy voice. Some people say sexy. Some people say creepy. Some people say, pervert in the park. But whatever it is, this is what you guys get this week. So it's an exciting time. But apart from the fact that I sound like a fool, we've got an amazing lineup for you fans, for you listeners, for you MMA fans out there today. Kasper, the drum roll has begun. Who do we have this week?
Yeah, even though the Gypsy Flu isn't sexy, it's never sexy. The guest list is sexy as always. We have Tony Ferguson returning to the program. We had Kevin Lee last week talking about their big fight at UFC 216 for the interim title. I can't wait for this one. We got Tony Ferguson on this week to, I guess, rebut things from Kevin Lee and, of course, talk about that fight, talk about these rumors of Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, a whole bunch of other things. It's always fun with Tony Ferguson, so I'm really looking forward to speaking to him. He's going to be our second last guest at the end of this week's episode. Also, Ovince Saint Preux making his Submission Radio debut. Never ever spoken to Ovince in our lives. Can't wait to get the man on, see what he's all about. He's obviously got this rematch coming up with Shogun on September 23rd in Japan. We all know how the first one ended, so we want to get his thoughts on that and just in general what's been going on in his life. He's had some ups, some downs, and he's back in the win column now, so I want to pick his brain a little bit. Another guest. I'm really excited about this one. Not the biggest name that may stand out to you guys, but I've been excited all week about this. I barely slept a wink last night. Angel Mimo Guillermo Heredia Hernandez. How about that? A lot of people are probably thinking I'm not really... Yeah, I know, right? The pronunciation, Triple A. He's a Mexican and a former discus thrower, a PED supplier, and a sports coach. He is here to talk about this Jon Jones situation. Really, really fascinating guy. Basically, there's this infamous interview with him, a 2008 interview from, I believe, the German outlet Spiegel. I see it pop up every few months, if not every week, on Sherdog, on The Underground, on Reddit, and I think Luke Thomas shared it recently, and I read it every few months because it's so fascinating, and it's this guy, Angel Heredia. He was basically the PED supplier, the steroid supplier to a lot of top athletes, Olympic athletes. He designed programs for them. He was like a wunderkind chemist, had all these skills, and he gives this crazy, insightful interview about basically PEDs and drug testing and how basically the ins and outs. He was obviously caught by the federal government. He became an FBI informant. He helped USADA design their program. So he's a very, very fascinating guy to speak to. And he will be part of Jon Jones' defense team for this UFC 214 failed drug test. So I am very, very excited to have him on, and I'm also fascinated to hear what he thinks and what he says. And just in general, not just Jon Jones, this whole MMA, PED situation, what he thinks about USADA, their effectiveness in MMA at lowering the amount of drugs that are being used and potentially ridding them in the future. And I have to mention, obviously, Angel Hernandez, he's turned his life around. He doesn't deal PEDs anymore. Everything that he does is strictly legal and legit. He's a strength and conditioning coach. He's also known as the man who took Juan Manuel Marquez to the level that he was and managed to beat Manny Pacquiao. So just in general, a fascinating guy, and I'm super excited to speak to him. And that's not even all. Dennis, we've got more guests, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. Damon Martin will be on the program later to preview UFC 215. There's some fun fights on the card, so if you guys haven't really gotten around to checking out what's going to be happening, don't worry. Damon Martin's going to be on in the program later. We'll be going through those matchups And, you and me, Cass, we're also very excited to see Tyson Pedro on the card as well. He's going to be on there too. So it's a big card in terms of fun matchups and exciting fights. So you guys will be able to hear Damon break that down. And then later on in the show, as we wrap up, I think we even might read out a couple of iTunes reviews, a couple of fun iTunes reviews that we've noticed, but I haven't had a chance to read before as well. So stick around to the end of the program for that, because that's going to be a lot of fun too. Follow us on Twitter @SubmissionAUS. What about Facebook? Have you liked our page? We can find out. We can look through the list. We can find your name. We can cross-check it. Don't make us do it. We barely have any time for our personal lives as it is, and our girlfriends are close to leaving us. Go on Facebook and like our page, facebook.com/submissionradio, AUS. And Casper, you mentioned it's a big show. It's a sexy show. We've got some new people on the program that haven't been on before. I'm super excited for it all. And I believe you've got one of them on the line right now, and you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys. Our next guest will be taking on Shogun on September 23rd in the main event of UFC Fight Night Japan in an exciting rematch. He is currently ranked number 7 in the UFC's light heavyweight division, is making his Submission Radio debut. He is none other than Ovince Saint Preux. Ovince, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Well, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you the first time on the program. Before we talk about the fight, we've been dying to ask you this for years. What's the story with the Omega symbols on your arms?
It was my fraternity in college. A lot of the black fraternities in college usually have that, and mine is Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So that's pretty much the reason behind it. Like, a lot of people always kind of figure out, even when I kind of throw my hands up in the air, it's a symbol that my fraternity does.
Wow. Respect to the fraternity. How did you get them done, Ovince? Because I've always wondered this. Were they burned on? Were they done professionally? Like, is it sort of like a knife job? How did it actually come to be on your arm?
It was kind of burned on there. So yeah, like I said, a lot of black fraternities do that.
Mm-hmm. Was there any point before you had it done that you were like, oh, stuff this, I'm out of here, just before it happened? Because we imagine it would be pretty painful.
No, it wasn't that bad.
How did you get them done? What's the story with the first time? Take us there. What was it sort of like during a fraternity party? How'd you get them done?
No, it pretty much happened like right after I joined my fraternity. Probably a couple months later, that's kind of decided I wanted one, and I was like, let me get one. And actually, 1 turned into 2, then 3, then 4. I technically got 5 right now.
Wow. How come so many?
Same thing with tattoos. You typically get 1, then 1 turns into 2, and so forth. So
that's awesome. I mean, you don't want to go for the Mike Tyson tattoo and get one on your face, but tell me, what's the limit here? What are we looking at? You're at 5 now. Do you have a perfect number in mind, or are you just going to keep going until you sort of run out of space?
Nah, I'm pretty much done right now. I'm done.
5 is the limit for Ovince Saint Preux. All right, so let's talk about your upcoming fight. You're facing Shogun in Japan on September 23rd, but considering that you already, own a highlight reel knockout over Shogun, how did this fight come together, and what was your reaction when you found out that you'd be facing Shogun again?
I mean, initially, when it happened, I was like, okay, why would the fight happen again? And given the circumstances of the fight and just in the situation, right now he's ranked ahead of me. And given, like I said, the circumstances in the situation, well, first of all, it's a main event fight. So that's definitely, a good reason to take the fight. But then after that, just to fight him in Japan, just in general, I always wanted to fight in Japan. The Japanese culture, once you talk about mixed martial arts, you got to throw that culture into it. And pretty much where a lot of mixed martial arts originated from was, Japan, and the fan base over there is crazy. And regardless if you're, home crowd, home team, or if you are somebody from elsewhere, they still show you a lot of respect. And also too, Shogun was the former. Before Shogun was the UFC champ, he was a Pride champ. His last fight there was 2006. His last fight was 2006, and it's a Tom Arena too, Super Arena. And, he was a champ. And, for him to go back, I think it's more added pressure for him than I am, because, I wouldn't be surprised at one point in time if he had a a place of residence in Japan. So, at the end of the day, just the atmosphere around it, the way it's building up, it's going to end up being it's going to end up being really good. But then after that, to fight a legend within the game, not once but twice, is definitely a plus.
And when you were younger and sort of watching the game of MMA, did you watch Pride much? And did you watch Shogun in his prime in Japan? Do you remember doing that before you got into MMA?
That's all I used to watch. I used to watch the old Pride videos. That's all I used to watch when I first started mixed martial arts. It's just like, my trainer Eric, he knows guys from, way back when and stuff. He'll start naming guys, and I'm like, who is that? Oh my God, He once almost had his eye gouged out during the fight, and he still fought another 30 minutes. And I'm like, that's not cool. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, he's saying it's awesome. And I'm like looking at him like, no, that's kind of crazy. And he was like, well, you youngsters, y'all don't know anything about fighting now. And I was like, I probably don't. But he talks about that, and he always talked about Pride. Pride had a lot of good fighters, because Pride fighters, you had everybody from everywhere. I mean, you had guys still fighting in the UFC right now that fought in Pride and stuff. I watched all those guys, the McGregor brothers, Shogun was one of my favorite fighters. Hendo, you got, Overeem. So you got all those guys I used to watch in Pride and stuff, and I'm like, yeah. Even when Chuck Liddell did the crossover to Pride, I watched that. I used to be a huge Pride fan. And given the fact that, a lot of these guys end up coming to the UFC and stuff, still, though, it's going to be that, that history behind there where, when Shogun, obviously when he landed in Japan, they're going to greet him a lot more than myself, just because everybody know who Shogun is. And, like, even when I went to Japan about a month ago, they asked me, okay, yeah, you fighting Shogun? Everybody was like, oh, like, everybody, if you say Shogun, everybody's like, oh, like, and the Japanese people know their fighters. They know their fighters.
Yeah, and I mean, now your peers with a lot of these legends. I'm just wondering, when you first got into the game and you first were in the UFC, were around some of these guys, did you ever have a moment where you were starstruck meeting anyone? Was there anyone in particular when you met him, you're like, oh, holy shit, I was watching this guy, on my TV, for years, and now he is. Have you ever had any of those moments when you sort of are around those guys?
I mean, I think the starstruck moment I had, was Marcus Rua when I seen him.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a small show in Washington, D.C., and I was looking at my coach, and I was like, hey, is that? And he was like, yep, that's him. And then after that, I was like, wow. Because everybody knows him through his devastating leg kicks and stuff.
Yeah.
And even though he fought at heavyweight, he was actually one of the most active heavyweights out there and stuff. So, I think that was my moment when I was like, oh, my God. And, like, within the MMA circuit, you can fight on small shows, but you're still going to see, a guy that, fights in the top level. I know a lot of small shows I've seen him, like Jose Aldo. It was kind of like a starstruck moment. But, and now we're fighting in the UFC. It's not too much being about starstruck. You're going to be like, damn, I might have to fight him. And it's more of the, not starstruck anymore. It's more of the respect factor towards that person.
Yeah, and of course you can't be starstruck to do what you did when you faced Shogun last time. Everybody remembers that highlight reel knockout. What was that like for you? I mean, watching the guy in Pride, idolizing him, and then going in there and finishing him like that.
To be honest, I was starstruck. I got the fight on the 8 days notice, and I was like, I'm fighting who? They got me fighting who? And I was like, shit. And I mean, I think the first, 12, I say the first 24 hours, I was thinking to myself, man, the heck is going on here? And then after that, the next day I woke up and I was like, this is a beautiful day. I'm fighting Shogun in 8 days. And, when that happened, I just went out there and was myself. And, obviously I don't think he knew what I was capable of. And, I think this time around, he kind of knows what I'm capable of. And, I went out there and I did my job, and I think I'm the only person ever to finish him off in the first round. So yeah, and, I feel good. At that time I felt good, and this time, especially this time, this time I don't feel good at all. This time I feel great.
And I know you mentioned that he kind of, I don't know, maybe didn't give you as much credit in the first fight, and in this one he's probably ready and knows how dangerous you are. How do you see this rematch playing out? Do you think it ends quickly again, or do you think this one might play out for a little bit longer this time?
Well, the thing about it is, I tell people at this, everybody got a puncher's chance of doing anything. Shogun likes finishing people. You give Shogun a reason to get in a slugfest, he's gonna stay in there. And he loves to do that. And me as a fighter, he's just like, I also got to be technical. I'm not a brawler. I was never a brawler. I pick and choose my shot. And at the end of the day, if the fight goes, I beat him in 34 seconds. If the fight goes 34 seconds, it goes 34 seconds. If it goes all 5 rounds, I got to be prepared for 5 rounds. The thing about going 5 rounds is, regardless, somebody's going to catch somebody at one point in time, and I know I'll have a couple good shots. If it goes all 5 rounds, I know I have a couple good shots. And I think my shots are more devastating than his.
We'll talk about you in just a moment, Ovince, but what do you think about Shogun's run lately? He's on a little bit of a career resurgence. He's won 3 in a row. Do you see much difference between Shogun back then compared to the Shogun now, other than, say, maybe the mentality that he's going to be bringing to this fight?
Now I think he's a little more patient than anything. He's picking and choosing the shots and stuff. But it's not hard to bring the old Shogun out. You put him in a brawling situation, that's gonna come right back out. But he just sat back and been patient. When he fought Nog, that fight was primarily standing up, and Nog rocked him a couple times. He rocked Nog a couple times. And I think he just, with Shogun pressure, he loves to come forward. He's constantly coming forward. And, when he fought Corey Anderson, it was Corey. Corey was actually winning the fight. It's just, for some reason, the last 10 seconds of the fight, Corey get dropped. And, when the judges see that, especially the fight being down in Brazil, when the judges see that, that's what they see last, if, he's about to get finished. And fighting Gian Vellante, same thing happened. The fight usually stayed around the same the first round, and comes the second and third round, Shogun just starts pressuring him, and kind of ended up finishing him from there.
Well, talk to us about yourself. You've obviously gone through some ups and downs over the last year. What was that period like for you when the first time in your career you had 3 back-to-back losses? And granted, they were to champions and top contenders. And mentally, how did you bounce back from that period?
Just mentally, I tell people at times, it doesn't matter what you do within any realm of sport, whether it's mixed martial arts, boxing, football, basketball, etc. You can have all the physical attributes that you have, and everything can be clicking in all cylinders. But if you're not mentally there, you're broken before you even got in the fight. And the biggest thing about me was I did a lot of mental training, especially for this last fight against Lima. Pretty much my whole entire camp consists of mentally training, and that's a big thing within the sport. And you see somebody like Conor, who always talk about mental skills training, and I think a lot of fighters don't work on that a lot, because like I said, mentally, if you go into the fight mentally jacked up, in your head it's not totally focused into the fight, you'll see the results at the end.
I'm just wondering, does it sort of give you also extra confidence when you look at those fights and you go over them? Do you get confidence from knowing that, you came extremely close to beating a guy like, say, Volkan Ozdemir, who many people believe is next in line for a title shot? Do you draw anything from that?
Yeah. It's crazy because, I tell a lot of people, you'd be like, you fought somebody who just came out of nowhere. And I was like, well, he's always been good. He was actually getting ready for a fight. It was a short notice fight. But at the end of the day, it's crazy. It was the fight, to be honest, the fight could have went either way. At the end of the day, I landed him by 50 or 60 punches. But it's different. The last 2 guys he flew through. But he had a hard time flying through me, So I don't know. It's crazy. It's just like I'm looking at him and I'm telling him to keep it up, keep up the good work. So eventually we'll bump heads again.
And I mean, looking at light heavyweight in 2017, we've seen a lot of fighters leave and go to other organizations. What do you make of the notion that the division is currently a thin division with some fighters close to retirement and not many immediate new contenders?
Well, there's always new contenders coming through. There's still new guys always coming through regardless. Guys leave, guys are always going to come. You just haven't heard about them yet just because they haven't made a name for them yet. At one point in time, I was one of those guys too. Just people jumping ship or just leaving is up to them. I mean, at the end of the day, I cannot question a man who thinks, this decision is going to be better for him and his family. So if he thinks it's going to be better for him and his family, I'm going to shake your hand and tell you hats off. Because that's one thing I don't do is question people about their motives or whatnot. And if they're getting paid more money, they're getting paid more money. And, if they feel like, they can do better than other organizations, so be it. So that's one thing I never do, question a man about his motives.
And of course, the other crazy thing that's happened to the division in 2017, just recently, is this massive shakeup with, Jon Jones obviously failing his recent drug test, UFC 214. I'm wondering, Ovince, considering that he was a previous opponent of yours, what was your reaction when you heard the news that, he'd failed his drug test?
Damn. I was training and one of my training partners, he was leaving and it came up on a website and he showed me and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I was like, well, they're going to get sample B tested and we'll see what sample B said. I don't know if sample B came out yet, but...
Not yet.
You really don't know what to say. I mean, if it comes out, if sample B comes out and be like, it was still positive, I mean, people say throw him to the gas chamber. Regardless, if sample B comes out and it's positive, more than likely he'll be suspended anywhere from 2 to 3 years minimum. But if it's not, it's still going to be it's just one of them things where you get it's almost like you get arrested and you go to court. Even if you get your record expunged or whatnot, and let's say you was wrongfully accused and you get that is expunged. People still can pull all that up online and be like, oh, you got arrested and so and so. Same thing for that for the drug test. Even if it comes back negative, it's still gonna put a light bulb in people's head or whatnot. Oh, they said he was on something back in 2017. And, people never really let go of things like that. So it's going to be hard either way. It's going to be harder if it's positive, but it's still going to be hard if it's negative too, just because people are always going to have mixed feelings about certain situations.
And I mean, from your perspective, it's an interesting one because obviously you're a super nice guy and you're giving Jon the opportunity to sort of go through due process before you really say anything. But at the same time, you are a previous opponent of him. You have fought him in the past. So when you did see the news, was there any part in your head that sort of kind of wondered if there was anything sus going on when you two fought?
I mean, of course. I did an article a while back saying, I just wanted him to tell the truth. But anyway, but at the end of the day, with me, I probably just wanted to know. But at the end of the day, what can I do about it? So, it's a situation where, I've learned, especially when, like my fight when I fought Vulcan. I walked in the locker room and I caught myself screaming and I was like, what am I mad for? I mean, I did everything I did. I poured my heart out in the fight. I trained hard. I felt like I won the fight. I felt like I said, I outlanded him by over 50 punches. But at the end of the day, after that, I looked at my trainer. I was like, I'm back on the gym Monday. We need to find a fight. It's on to the next one. So, by then, my mindset was already on to the next one. And at the end of the day, when anything happens, everything comes out to light. Eventually, you can't hold on to the same thing over and over again. Everything always comes out to light.
Is it a closure thing? If it did get to that point one day where Jon spoke to you, would it be a sense of closure for you if you did find out what the truth was behind that one?
Maybe not. Because at the end of the day, you're just like, can I dwell on it? Yeah. But if I'm dwelling on it, I'm holding on to the past, and there's no reason for me to do that. So my mindset is always going to be like, I'm here in the present, concentrate on the present, because whatever is going to put me in the present, however I perceive myself right now, in the future is going to be that much better. I can't perceive myself the way I did in the past and whatnot. It's essentially me getting down on myself. And, that's another form of mental skills training where that comes in the hand. I got to end up elevating my mind a lot more.
Mm-hmm. And if you did, assuming all goes well, you work your way back up and you're in title contention, if you were in a position where you would potentially be rematching Jon Jones, in light of this situation, would it make you think twice or sort of be a cause for concern at all, sort of look into the future?
Not necessarily, because at the end of the day, because as much scrutiny has he been under, especially, these past 2 years or whatnot, I would say he's walking the tightrope. And, even like I said, if the results come back negative, I mean, he's still going to end up being in that. He's still going to have that bubble of people that's going to be like, we still don't like you, or, we still think you're this bad guy. But at the end of the day, even if it comes back negative, you know how much scrutinized he's going to be, or how much eyes is going to be on him? Do you know how much times USADA might pop up at his house? So, and it's one of them things where, okay, it came positive. If something comes positive and he said do sample B and it came back negative, they're going to actually keep more eye on you, just for the simple fact it's just one of them things where, okay, we need to figure out how this happened, because this was just positive, now it's negative, there's something wrong there. So they're going to dial in on him a lot more anyways. But if it's come back positive, I mean, shoot, he's gone for the next 2 to 3 years.
And if that does happen, and if he is positive, what do you think should happen in the division? Do you believe Daniel Cormier gets the belt back by default, or do you want to see a fight set up between Cormier and someone else for the vacant belt? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's up to Cormier. Cormier can get the belt by default, but at the end of the day, Cormier can be like, even though, he was on PEDs or whatnot, I still want to fight the chance for the belt. That can easily happen. But, it's up to Cormier. Cormier, it's one of them things where Cormier, this is your belt, and he'd be like, no, I'm going to fight for it.
If you were playing...
So he could easily go out.
I was going to say, Ovince, and we'll let you go in just a moment. We appreciate the time. If you were playing matchmaker, who do you think would be next in line for the vacant belt, if it happens?
Oh, shoot, man. Like you said, a lot of people said the way Vulcan been looking, but shoot, to be honest, the way Alexander looked against Glover, shit. What can you say about that?
Well, let's get back to you, because you're currently ranked number 7. With this win over Shogun, what do you think it does for you, and how close do you feel you are to another title shot, especially in a division right now where it looks like there's a little bit of opportunity opening up?
With me, a win would definitely put me on a strong shoot. Go from a 3-fight losing streak to end up going to a 2-fight losing streak. And Shogun, the last person he lost to was me, and for him to fight me again and lose again, it'll put me in a strong suit. It'll put me definitely with at least, I would say I would need at least 2 more fights to end up being the number 1 contender. I'm to be honest, I'm prepared for that, and I'm beyond prepared for that. My body, I've been pushing my body through the max. My body, I'm just recognizing now, basically, I'm pretty much at the tip of the iceberg. I can still push myself. Push myself just a little bit more. But my body is doing some amazing things right now. The way I've been training so far, I have never been pushed through that before. And And a lot of times, the mind will break before the body will. Like, to be honest, it's crazy. The mind is always your friend that's telling you, no, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. And then next year, you'll never be able to do it. And the crazy thing about the body is that retarded friend that thinks it can do everything, which it technically can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you fuel your body the correct way, it can do unseen amount of things. It's ridiculous the way how like my fitness level's been doing. Got with a good strength and conditioning coach, and like every time somebody asks me, how is it working out with Frankie, and I'm like, death, just basically. And it's just that everlasting. Like every time I'm training, it's just like, okay, today I'm not gonna. You had a hard day yesterday, and I'm gonna take it a little easy on you today. And I'm thinking to myself, yes. And I'm like, by the time I get done with the workout, I was like, shit, this was harder than it was yesterday.
Mm.
And, this is the type of workout I experience every single day. It's just grind after grind after grind. And a lot of people think that's not good for them. But at the end of the day, my body's built for this. I've been an athlete all my life. I've been an athlete since I was in freaking 8th grade. In high school, all I did was football, track, and wrestling. That's all I did. I played football at a D1 program, and the way my body is, the things I can do to my body, like my body's built for this type of punishment, and this is the only way I'm going to get better. And I tell people that a lot of times you're just like, my body is a weapon, but at the same time, as much as I'm building my body to actually deliver punishment to another human being, the same human being that I'm delivering punishment to, I got to make sure my body can abuse punishment too. So, I think everything for me is clicking in every single avenue, and the mindset about it is just unbelievable. It's one of them things where I tell people, you eat clean, you train better, you train longer. The way my body been feeling, the way, my overall just training been going, like mentally, I just feel like I can't be touched right now. I don't usually talk shit, but I'm talking shit all the time in the gym. I'm like running. I'm doing shit on my own that I would never do. Like I would never get up in the morning and just go running by myself. I would never do that. I have to literally psych myself to do that. Now I just do it. Okay, shoot, let's go for a run. And I'm 4 miles later. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm good. So it's unbelievable. Like and a lot of it, and I think a lot of it has to do with my trainer, Eric Turner, who mentally exhausts me. Like mental people don't realize it. Mental skills training is worse than actually like doing anything physically training, because mentally training yourself will wear you down completely. And I've done that, and my body feels good, my mind feels strong and sharp. And the thing about it is it's crazy. Like I would rather fight somebody with the best talent in the world, but if I fight somebody that don't think they can ever be beat, that'll be probably the worst person to ever fight. Because at one point in time, somebody could think they can be beat, but at this point in time right now in my career, I don't think I can be beat. You can throw a freaking gorilla in front of me, I'm just gonna sit there and laugh.
Well, there you go. The gorilla will be the next matchup after the Shogun fight. But I was going to say, that's a dangerous mindset to have. When you have one like yourself, Ovince, and you're that confident, it's a very dangerous fighter to fight. As we let you go, and we do appreciate the time, just curious, have you, with you going to Japan, to Shogun's backyard, the place where he made his name, have you thought about the fact that maybe Shogun will retire after this fight? And I'm wondering how you sort of feel about that if you were the guy who retired, the great Shogun Rua.
Definitely going to be a good out, regardless of me. Definitely going to be a good out. And, it might be a possibility he might retire after the fight. It might not. The thing about what's crazy about it, the thing about these guys who've been around for a long time, of course Shogun been around for a long time, is don't matter what happens, you just can't sit down. You always have that itch to come back. So do I think he's going to retire? Probably not. He always have that certain itch to come back. So, it's definitely going to be something to look forward to. And I know a lot of people is going to look forward to it. And this is why I'm actually, every day I wake up, and even if I tell myself, let me just kind of taper off today, I'm always thinking about Shogun. If he tapering off, because I know he remembered what I did to him the last time, if you're going to take off, and I was like, nope, got to pick it right back up. And, I get through my workout, and I'm like, damn, I'm happy I did that.
Well, there you go, guys. A very dangerous sounding and rejuvenated and mentally strong OSP heading in to face Shogun, who on September 23rd is in the Saitama Super Arena in Japan. Get tickets if you're lucky enough to be there. Of course, follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at 003_OSP. He's got some hilarious videos on there. And we really appreciate your time, Ovince. Thank you so much for chatting with us, and good luck in the fight in Japan.
All right, thank you guys for having me.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest has a fascinating history as a supplier and pioneer in the field of performance-enhancing drugs, a witness for the FBI and USADA. He has since turned his life around and is now a strength and conditioning coach, is known for his great work with Juan Manuel Marquez in leading him to victory over Manny Pacquiao. One of the most knowledgeable and credible men on the subject. He joins us to discuss Jon Jones' recent failed drug test at UFC 214. He is Angel Memo Heredia Hernandez. Angel, welcome to the program. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for the invitation. I'm honored to be on your show.
It is a pleasure. We are very excited to speak to you. Before we even talk about Jones, I just have to quickly mention that we have absolutely loved your 2008 interview with the German outlet Spiegel, I think it's called. We see it pop up every few months on different forums and websites, and in general, people find it to be one of the most insightful and eye-opening interviews when it comes to sort of PEDs in sports. Just curious, were you aware that people still to this day go back and read that almost 10-year-old interview?
Well, it was a good interview. It was an interview that I had to really expose, because I had to really expose the truth. There's a lot of situations where people has been, at the time they were misled. Obviously today they have been misled a lot as far as the testing procedures and how many drugs and pets is still untraceable today. And imagine, so far the testing has advanced a lot, but we're talking about an interview that happened in 2009. So there was a lot of stuff that were not traceable at the time. I was able to help the FBI. I was able to help the USADA to uncover some of those drugs and some of those increasing the possibility of detection as far as when to analyze the sample, when to take the sample, when the athletes normally would take these certain drugs, and that'll help a lot. And still today, I mean, it's gotten better, but there's a few things and a few situations that are not as specifically well done,
And we're fascinated to talk to you about Jon Jones. Just quickly on that, with those situations, what do you think is the major issue right now when it comes to the world of testing and PEDs in sports?
Well, it's very interesting, the case of Jon Jones. I'm looking at everything, the timeline, and basing on what the media has said about his case, what his manager has said on the case, and based on everything, and based on the results of what he, previously, my understanding, he previously got tested 21 days before the actual test where he came out positive. That was around 20 or 21 days. He was tested, I believe he was tested in urine and blood, and he came out negative. So 21 days or 20 days later, he come out to a testing procedure, which is at the end of the fight, and he came out positive. Now, what really gets my attention, and certainly this is my opinion, it's that the protocol that WADA is utilizing today, for the detection of turinabol, it's implementing it basing on now they can detect 6 different particular metabolites out of new metabolites out of turinabol, which one of those metabolites, which is the M3, it lasts up to 7 weeks it lasts up to 7 weeks in the body. So, and I don't say this is not my opinion. These words comes from the guy who designed that particular testing method. So, frankly, based on what he's saying, how would Jon Jones test negative 20 to 21 days towards the day he got tested positive, and he be tested negative, and then he tested positive? You understand my point? Yeah.
So I guess
in other words, in my opinion, if he would have been using way before then, eventually would have been positive on the 21 day testing before the fight, and then he was negative and he came out positive. And now I don't really question the testing or anything like that. But frankly, that test itself, it lacks of credibility for a lot of reasons. You know, I mean, we can go on, and I can be very specifically when in terms of chemistry, but I don't want to mislead the people that listen to us. It's just the fact that they detected these 6 different metabolites, and one of them stays longer than up to 7 weeks. But the most intriguing part of it is that some of those metabolites, they're not really confirmed that it's actually coming from that trainable structure. So there's a lot of questioning. You know, there's a lot of questions that makes you wonder. You know, like I said, I've seen it all in the sport. I've seen guys who cheat. I've seen guys who doesn't want to cheat and yet still get caught for mistakes. And I've seen analytical procedures that gone wrong. So at this point, in my opinion, I want to believe the only thing that could have caused the positive test for this guy could have been the supplement that had been contaminated. And for that reason, it's a big issue happening in the United States. There's a lot of supplement industry that has been going into different legal lawsuits because cross-contamination, supplementation, mislabeling, et cetera. So there's a possibility. There's a possibility there. The other one, I don't think Jon will be that naive to, you know, knowing that he's been targeted testing by USADA, knowing that he had been random urine and blood, and he would take something, says, for example, 14 days before the fight, knowing that he would be random testing again, blood and urine, and it would be definitely target testing means that they go with you with every specific testing they can, everything they got available. So that makes you wonder. That makes you have to give the guy what do you call the expression they say in America? You have to hear his side, and not only what he says, but I believe what they're doing is they're waiting on a B sample opening, and we still got to wait for that because my understanding, this is just what I heard. I'm not gonna say sources or anything like that. That one of his samples was retested 5 times until they pretty much got the positive finding. So it's very accurate, in my opinion, to retest the sample 5 times, you know, one particular sample, to try to find out or confirm. The question that brings into us is, did they really retest the A sample 5 times to confirm the result or to try to find him positive? Because it does happen with some analytical procedures, you can be in the middle between negative and positive, and yet when you keep trying to push for that result, you eventually will get it. You understand? So that brings a lot of questions. I mean, and in my opinion, my very personal opinion, I don't really think that this guy would take something 20 to 21 days towards the fight, knowing that he's going to be random test. So I think it's more into this situation. I want to believe that perhaps there's a protocol is not as bright as what it's, you know, pretty much stating about, because there's a lot of other scientists that agree with me. The testing itself is not really 100% credible. So I don't know if you understand who designed the test. There was a doctor who, you know, you've seen the movie Icarus. That's the guy who designed the specific testing method. So WADA adapted it, but there's not really enough data or enough researching into this particular method of detection. So there's a lot of questions. You know, there's a lot of questions that obviously pops in our minds. But as my opinion, very personal opinion, I believe that he's not the guy that would do such a mistake like that. I mean, knowing that he has too much to lose for a chip-chop steroid, you know? Just my opinion, very personal.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there about what you said, Angel. We obviously saw on your Facebook page that you'll actually be taking part in Jon Jones's legal defense team as an expert witness and advisor on his, on the testing analytical procedures done by USADA. Just curious, how and when did this come about that you're now going to be part of Jon Jones's defense team? Were you approached by Jones's team, or did you reach out to them?
They reached out to me, and they wanted to hear my expertise on this, and obviously, you know, I'm the kind of guy who's neutral on everything. Like, in other words, I'm the kind of guy who doesn't like to just say that I'm fighting doping and believe that everyone is dope. No, you have to see the facts. We have to see evidences. We have to see how the test procedures were done, who really analyzed those procedures, and chain of custody. There's so many things that can go wrong when it comes to testing sample. So yes, I was contacted by his manager, and I was happy to assist and provide what my internal knowledge into testing procedures. And obviously, as you guys said it, I worked so many years. I mean, I helped the USADA anti-doping cause for years. Obviously, they can never talk about me loudly because I'm still a federal witness. So they can't really, there's a contract line where they can't talk about witnesses. So obviously, I don't get the credit as much when it comes to the media, but definitely it's in there. They know, and I know that USADA knows me. I mean, I worked with Trevor Taggart when he was when he was only the consular. He was not even the headquarters head member of the USADA. So just take a moment and look back how far that back is. This is way before 2004 to 2010. That's when I pretty much took over as a head member of the USADA. So
you and Jeff Nowitzki, you guys have had a relationship ever since 2002, and you speak with him regularly. Have you had a chance to speak to him about the situation yet?
Well, last time I spoke to him was probably, I would say, about a year ago. He wanted me to help him out with the before he was hired, but to become the assessor for the UFC. He wanted me to help him out in boxing, and we sat down and we had a 2-hour meeting. I remember we spoke about different subjects, and one of those subjects was boxing, how the testing itself was not sufficient for the sport, and how it was very important to establish a proper testing, because obviously you were playing with two people's lives on the ring. So that was something that was concerning the government. But as we get on, I told him that definitely, I gave him some advices, and we spoke literally about, can't really say what we spoke a lot, but we talk about the subject and other things. But then he took over he resigned as a federal agent, I believe, and then he took over the UFC. And ever since then, he did approach me to talk to him, but I'm not involved in UFC in any way. So there's not much really I can help him. Obviously, when it comes to what drugs are available, what drugs are not detectable at this point, what that has lied about us that they can be detected and stuff forth. Yes, I can always come forward with that, and I think I'm not the only one that can say this. But frankly, UFC is doing a good job, in testing, very aggressive testing. But we also have to sit down for a moment and wait and think. Also, there's always possibilities of mistakes in the laboratories. They've been mistakes known that has happened in the past, but you don't hear much about them because most of the time they settle under the ramps. In other words, they don't come up publicly. They sign an agreement, and that's it. You sign a confidential agreement, and nothing is heard about it, because any testing agency or organization doesn't want you to know that they made a mistake, because otherwise they will lose a lot of credibility. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to take a chance to go and do the testing with them when you can go with somebody else and so forth. But at the end of the day, the anti-doping is becoming a big business. It's not really. It's helpful for the sport. It helps, and it helps a lot, but it's also becoming a big business. So, at the end of the day, they're trying to make their money. They're trying to get their contracts, and sometimes they wait to a point where they think everyone is cheating. And at the end of the day, there's athletes who are not cheating. Unfortunately, they get in the crosspath of these on these harmful events with contaminations present, ignorance comes into it, and they get popped, and they always been treated like cheaters. So I think it's unfair too. We have to also give credit to those athletes that they're trying to have the sport, at least trying to keep it clean. But like I said, it's hard. Boxing is going through a process that testing is being implemented, but it's not enough. How could you call random testing and being tested once every 2 months? Is that really random to you? Or having a random contract where you only get tested, says a couple times, and then you don't get tested for 3 weeks? Is that really random? My point is, they're leaving enough time, enough gap openings for anybody to cheat. In other words, there's a lot of substances you can use in between those 3 weeks and get away with it. So my point is, testing is important, it's needed, but also they have to take responsibilities for some issues that could occur. We have to sit down and wait what the situation is with Jon as far as the B sample, and then we go from there, because we have to see what the B sample ratings are, We got to see if there's any specific changes into the sample urine, and then you go from there. We can't sit down here yet and accuse him, because so far, he's tested positive in A sample, but we don't know anything about the B sample yet.
I was going to say, what are you expecting from that B sample? Because my understanding is the B sample, it's the same bit of urine that Jon would have submitted on the 28th. And like you mentioned, with obviously USADA, it's in their best interest to give the most reliable test results. So if they're, if the A sample is positive and the B sample comes back negative, kind of goes against the kind of message they want to send, and it makes them look bad. So what are you expecting from this B sample? Are you concerned?
Yeah, basically this is what it is, right? USADA and BADA, those are two organizations that have been conducting fighting sports. They rely on WADA. USADA doesn't do any testing itself. So what they do is that they do the testing or the urine sample collection, and they send them to WADA laboratories. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that conduct the testing procedures, the analytical testing procedures, and so forth. So basically the urine sample, it's been taken, and basically the B sample comes from the same sample. So normally it's very rare that a B sample would test negative. But if the B sample comes up with different gravity numbers or pH numbers or different things that could raise the flags to improper testing, then definitely that would raise questions. So like I said, there's not. Even USADA has a very credible business, because they attach to the United States laws, federal laws, which means it's good for the athlete as well, because you're also protected by those federal laws, because they get money by the Congress. Therefore, you also got the right to protect yourself. You got the right to fight any analytical finding that you might be questioning about. So frankly, it's very important to see what would happen in B sample. I don't want to say that it'll come out negative. I don't want to say it'll come out positive. We have to sit down and wait, and we certainly would know. But like I said, it's kind of weird that a metabolite that will stay up to 7 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And that comes positive on fight night, but it didn't come out positive 20 days before that particular test. That makes you wonder. Obviously they're going to say, well, maybe he drank a lot of water. They're going to come out and say all this kind of stuff to pretty much not to take responsibility of this factor. But the fact is that if you are sitting down and applying protocols that are not scientifically proven, you are losing credibility. Simple as that, Mm-hmm. Just like when they say, EPO is detectable, all this is that, and da. At the end of the day, we know that EPO is not detectable if you do microdosing, if you do certain things. There's several kinds of EPOs available in the market that still remain very hard to detect, pretty much impossible. So frankly, who are they trying to lie to? They have to be coming forward and say, this is what it is. Why use a protocol that is not really done proper research or data? Why implement it? Just like they did with Millennium. We go back to Millennium. Look what happened. They adapted that protocol for the particular testing, and then when they realized that the actual drug had a longer half-life, they had to retract themselves, and they had to really, in other words, slap the hands of the athletes were pretty much were embarrassed, and they were accused of doping. That's just to show you that at one point, testing laboratories or agencies, they collect a lot of money over the world. For example, WADA collects a lot of millions per year. So obviously they have to justify to the public they're doing something about it. Mm-hmm. Yet those guys travel first. World-class level. They stay at nice Far-Style hotels, beautifully nice kind of salaries. My point is, there's good things about him, and there's also a few things that we have to question. Simple. That's just me as being critical, because like I said, I've seen it all in the world. I've seen it all in terms of doping. I've seen it all in terms of unjustifiable cases. I've seen justifiable cases. You name it. So I'm just giving you my bare opinion on this,
Yeah, for sure. And I want you to weigh in on a theory, Angel, because this is something that a lot of fans are talking about, and I want to sort of see what you think, if it's plausible, if it's totally debunkable. Obviously with Jon Jones, he's passing these tests early in the month, and then he's failing them later in the month. So the conclusion a lot of people are drawing is that what if he was, say, taking something and there were masking agents, and then whatever somebody, this is all obviously hypothetical, if somebody gave gave him something and the masking agents were, say, a cheap knockoff, or they gave him a cheap knockoff of whatever, say, design a steroid they hypothetically would be giving him, and then towards the end of the month, that's why you saw that positive test. And I'm also curious, as far as Turinabol, would there be any point of taking it so close to a fight? Again, hypothetically.
No, listen, it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't make any sense. Not if I was a guy who was doping for a fight, having 14 days or 18 days towards the fight, it would not do magic for me. At the end because look, if you know a little bit about training, as you get close to the fight, you start easing it up. You start easing it up on the training. You start easing it up because you're making weight. You're pretty much getting ready to unload your training for a fight night. So it wouldn't make no sense at all. Besides, 20 days or even less than that would not, it will not help you at all. I'm just saying, it would not make a world champion. Simple as that. So frankly, the way I see it, the way the evidence points out, I mean, he was tested many times. He was flag. You have to understand, he was not only tested, he was flag tested, red flag tested, which means they would use every possible testing, any possible testing they have in their hands. In other words, they would do CR testing for synthetic testosterone. They will implement the new testing protocol for the Turinabol. They will implement the biopassport. They will implement all kinds of stuff. So it really trying to make something the last 18, 17 days, it don't make sense to me. I really think it's either a contamination, a supplement has been cross-contaminated, or perhaps a case of a bad protocol or test analytical procedure. So we have to sit down and wait. It's kind of early to say yet, but he doesn't point out to me that he was taking anything that will pass the test, or that would take any masks to pass the test. I mean, he was, like I said, he was tested plenty of times, and you have to understand he also had urine and blood. So once, for example, somebody takes a designer and they pretty much identify any of its metabolites, they would pretty much know what steps to follow next, and eventually they will break it down and it will come out to the name of the structure that it was not identifiable at the time. So at this point, there's nothing like that. Pretty much, they're accusing him in one particular metabolite. They're not accusing him of 6 different metabolites. You understand? Mm-hmm. One single metabolite, and that metabolite is the one that stays up to 7 weeks. So frankly, to me, it's awkward. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, some of the questions that you throw today, yes, it makes sense. Possibly something is up, possibly not. But the way I see it, I don't think he did anything wrong. So far, it doesn't look good, the test. As far as what I've seen so far, like I said, we still got to wait and see the sample. They're still working on getting all the data together. Unfortunately, USADA does not want to give the past results that he passed previously during the random testing. They don't give those out. Obviously, there's a way to get them, and it has to be through court. So that would be not up to me. That would be up to his lawyer. Jacobs is a great lawyer. He's one of the best in the world when it comes to defenses of anti-doping situations. So let's sit down and wait. Let's sit down and wait, see what happens.
Angel, we really appreciate your time, and we're going to let you go in just a couple of minutes. Just before we finish up, before USADA, many fighters said that they believed around 80-90% of fighters were on PEDs. But now with USADA around, what do you think the numbers are like today? And do you believe it was that bad before USADA came in?
Well, frankly, before USADA came in, yes, it was bad because you have to understand that there was a lot of situations where they were not getting random or tested at all. Maybe one time during the fight, and that's it. They were not getting random tests. They were not doing any blood and urine. In other words, there was a lot of situations where athletes were getting what they call replacement therapies, which means normally when a guy has a low testosterone, for example, less than 400 nanograms per ml, you're entitled to, by law, to get prescribed testosterone. But you will see that on guys who are 40, 45, 50 years old. Obviously your body, there's a point where you start producing testosterone. I mean, you start reducing the production of testosterone, but at the time you were seeing guys who were 20, 21, 23 years old. I mean, So my point is that that particular loophole in the system open up the wave of athletes to take advantage of it, and they were taking advantage of it. So obviously, yeah, it was a lot of issues when it came to the UFC, and not only that, I mean, boxing was even worse. It's just that right now it's gotten better. Hasn't changed much. Obviously, there's a few random testings in places, but UFC USADA has been more aggressive into the testing for the UFC. So I think the percentage has dropped a little bit. Maybe I would say 45%, maybe 40%. It's hard for me to give you a number because I haven't done any statistics at all. But what I'm just saying is, if you have a more aggressive testing, more targeting testing, more precisely testing in every fight, then the fighters who are cheating or who are thinking to cheat, they're probably gonna think it twice before they even do it, because next day you said I might come and take blood urine, so at least they have a little control into that, which minimizes. It doesn't stop doping. It does not stop doping at all. It just minimizes. It minimizes the window of cheating.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just curious, it's interesting to hear that it might still be that high, to say 45, 50%. I'm just wondering, in that 45, 50%, what is the most popular PED of choice? What are sort of athletes trying to go with? And I'm wondering, sort of going back to that 2008 article you spoke about, can MMA fighters afford designer steroids like, say, in the Olympics? Or is it a case where the money's not really enough in MMA, where they have to sort of settle for, something cheap, as an alternative?
No. I mean, why go so far into designing when eventually you can still take a lot of drugs that are there in the market that you can get in Las Vegas, perhaps, in replacement therapy clinics, and you still get away with it unless they provide a specific target testing for it. I mean, for example, if you go and start taking, for example, some testosterone cream, you might bypass the ratio. But if they don't apply the IRS testing or the CR testing, obviously you're going to get away with it. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So same thing with EPO. Same thing with blood transfusion. You could take blood transfusion, but if passport is not applied to you, you're gonna get away with it. Microdosing as well. So why even go too far and try to spend too much money on a designer where eventually you can get everything in the market now, and eventually you can get it actually on the prescription in the United States. Not only that, but in Australia, it's you guys been having so much issues on your own. Pretty much it's been invaded with certain kind of underground pets. I understand it. Am I correct or am I not correct?
I think it's something that's, I mean, obviously you would be the expert as opposed to us, but I would assume the problem is sort of worldwide as opposed to just, restricted to, say, the US and North America.
No, it's worldwide. I mean, look what happened in Russia. I mean, imagine, look what happened in Russia. I mean, the guy who was actually running the water authority went as far as and making his own product. I mean, this is worldwide. Don't get me wrong. I'm just giving you an example of what the athletes got access very easily nowadays on the ground labs, or even on the online research, or even through prescription. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy, and it's like I always said it before. If you go back on my Spiegel interview, I told everybody, where there's money, there's always going to be a cheating. Simple as that. I mean, you can't avoid it. Obviously, and I'm not saying everyone is cheating, but obviously we got our cheaters somewhere in there, Yeah.
Angel, we really appreciate your time. We could honestly speak to you all day and pick your brain. You're a fascinating guy to speak to, but I feel like we've taken up enough of your time, so we'll let you go. Guys, don't forget to follow the man at Guru Science on Twitter. We'd love to speak to you in the future again, Angel, but really, really appreciate you giving us the time and coming to the program, chat with us, and obviously giving your insight on this Jon Jones situation. So thank you so much.
No problem.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my two favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
Well, guys, our next guest is finally getting his chance to fight for the interim lightweight title in the main event of UFC 216, riding an incredible 9-fight win streak. He is one of the most exciting lightweights in the world to watch. It's a pleasure to welcome El Kakui, Tony Ferguson, back to Submission Radio. Welcome to the program, Tony.
Hey, thank you guys very much, man. I'm actually on my way to Big Bear right now. There's a little switch up in camp, so things are going to get interesting.
Really? Why? I thought you always trained at Big Bear. Why the switch up?
Well, just because I want to give this kid a little bit more of an ass whooping. You know what TF stands for with Tony Ferguson, but it's technical fault. And in wrestling, that means you got your ass kicked and then you got your ass kicked again. That means that you got outpointed and then you got pinned. This kid's got such a big mouth. I want to actually put the icing on top of the cake by going up to Big Bear, preparing like a beast, and then giving you crowd everything that you want to on that pay-per-view. Come October 7th, Kevin Lee's finished. That's done.
I'm curious, Tony, when was this decision made? Did you just make it now? And was it something that he said that made you change your mind about going up to Big Bear? What was it that kind of made you want to jump in the car and go up there?
No, it wasn't like I was missing anything, and it wasn't like he said anything, but I'm just how I am, and it's funny because my wife, she's like, you know, it wouldn't be you if you didn't do that kind of stuff. And so it's me. I'm like the last minute decision, kind of like, you know what, I'm going to do this shit. And why? Because I just feel it. I really think that going up to Big Bear is going to make me become a little bit more mental edge over this guy. This guy talks a lot, man. And I'm not even trying to let that anywhere near close to what I've worked hard for. You said it already. You said 9-fight win streak. That wasn't given to me. That shit was earned, man. And those fights were classics. Those were classic wars that I've earned performance bonuses from. So for this kid to be able to go from a number 7 to a title fight, I'm going to let him know, you're welcome. You're welcome. I did you that favor. I was there in International Fight Week. I was talking to myself thinking, I was like, you know what? Khabib's bitch ass ain't going to fight. He's not going to even make weight either. He's going to be waiting for Conor, so I need to make some shit happen. So when I approached him in International Fight Week and that bitch didn't even lift up one arm to throw a punch like he did on Chiesa, I knew he was going to be parking easy money.
Well, we're excited to talk about the fight, but while you're in the car, I got to ask you, have you gone past any more of those UFC billboards that say that you're fighting for the featherweight title? And what was your reaction when you saw the first one?
For one, I said I had to lose some more weight. I was like, oh, shit. Fuck it. I almost had to stop eating and drinking what I was eating at the moment. I was like, oh, shit. That Mexican food looked good, but I was like, I might want to think about it. At first, I was kind of pissed, but I was like, you know what? It's kind of funny to think about it. Oh, you know, my wife took a picture of it, and she shared it, but then she didn't notice it right away. It was a fan that noticed it, and then we were kind of like, oh, that's funny. So that's why I've not let the UFC know that the marketing department is A+.
Did they get back to you with an explanation? Did they explain what happened there? Did you try and get anyone fired, Tony? You're like, I want that man gone.
No, I think they're wanting me to actually go for the featherweight title. You know, they're like, Tony, you know, we
it's
don't
a
want
sign.
you to go to we don't want to kick GSP's ass. We want you to go towards Max. Well, once I'm done with this division, I'll move on to a different division. But Max is pretty chill. 170 pounds, that needs to be straightened up a little bit. But you know what I mean? It is what it is, and I'm having fun with this. And that's what this camp is about. That's why I'm going to Big Bear. Camp out at Black House is amazing, but my coach is going to be able to make it up to Big Bear. So that's where it was a team effort. Teamwork makes the dream work. I'm very excited to be able to, you know, do this, man, to try something again, but yet a little bit different than I did when I was preparing for Mexico City. I really want to see where my conditioning can get to, and I really, really want to see where my martial arts can get to. I don't want to get hit no more. I want to come out with this fight a flawless victory. I want to put this dude into that position where he never is in the top 10 again.
Well, let's quickly talk about Lee being the challenger because, I mean, you mentioned it before how you went up to him at the expo and this fight kind of started getting put together. But a lot of fans thought it would definitely be Khabib that would be fighting you for this interim title. So tell us, what was your reaction when you saw Lee getting the fight against you? And were there any other names sort of in the wings that we don't know about that were possibly thought about for this fight against you at UFC 216?
I thought they were using Lee as leverage for Khabib, you know, to get him to bite down on the I mean, shit, you fans, I want the fight too. I mean, shit, even I think Khabib would actually lose the weight if he could get his shit together. I mean, Ali Abdelaziz, they said that they weren't ready for the fight, which I think was bullshit. I think that the boy, I mean, literally, you can only fight once a year. I mean, that's bullshit, dude. Like, like I say, you need to retire. I'm running out of Team Tiramisu ideas. You know, Tiramisu Tuesday is only good enough when you got good quality stuff, but it is what it is, and it's not funny anymore. It really isn't. You got a lot of fans that are really disappointed in you, and you're disappointing yourself. You're letting me fight a number 7. You got to be sitting on the sidelines and hating your ass. You got to be thinking, be like, shit, why the hell did I not sign on that dotted line? Mm-hmm. Why am I let Ferguson fighting Kevin Lee? Holy shit, Tony's going to get a belt, and I'm not going to get shit. I'm going to be stuck here with that fake belt that I got when I fucking went to Russia and everybody gave one to me. That's what he's going to be saying. You know, enjoying his Team Tiramisu. I like the end of Dodgeball when you have Ben Stiller eating that fucking ice cream.
Fucking that's Chuck Norris.
That's Khabib right there. Fuck that Chuck Norris. You know? Fuck yeah, America, bitch. And, you know, it is what it is, and I'm tough as nails, and I show up. I show up every single time. And if we have a game opponent in Kevin Lee that wants to show up and has got more heart than Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, than any of these other dudes, because I don't see anybody else signing up on that dotted line. Nobody's jumping up saying, hey, I want to fight T. Ferg. I want to get in that cage with El Kukui. Fuck no. Nobody's saying that shit. Nobody wants to go in the nightmare with the fucking Freddie J. No way. No way. This kid even actually opened up a can of worms by talking shit. So things are going to get interesting, man. I mean, I'm really excited. His trash talk is fucking cringy as fuck, too. So, I mean, it's actually, I mean, I don't want to say it's a battle of the cringe, but it's a battle of the best. Right now, this kid's a hot prospect. I'm going to shut that. They're always trying to build prospects off of me. Can I be mad at that? No, I don't give two fucks. Fuck you, pay me. If I put on a performance, fucking pay me. I'm going to do my shit. But don't lowball me. I'm going to give you a lowball fucking, like an expectation fight. You want to fucking have featherweight champion on that billboard, you're going to get a featherweight performance. If you really want to see a performance, treat me with some respect, man. Fucking, that's it. I'm a real champ. I'm here. I'm putting in the time. I'm putting in the effort. And I can't wait to show some cool videos of me doing some cool shit out here in Big Bear.
Oh, for sure. People need to jump on the Instagram account and check it out. Just on that, I mean, before we move off Khabib and into the fight, we saw that Instagram post that you put up where Khabib's manager Ali said that they wanted a fight in November and December, but the UFC needed it to be in the main event for October. So he said you jumped in. However, you reposted a picture of his post and said that they were the ones who actually turned out fights for both October and November dates. So can you clear up the confusion? What exactly happened there?
So I was down to fight. I'm game to fight no matter when and where, obviously. I proved that when International Fight Week. I don't need anybody to hold my hand to get a fight, but if Khabib, I'm trying to hold his fucking hand, and you have Ali Abdelaziz saying, no, it's not true. We offered you the fight in October. We offered you the fight in November, and damn it, I damn near offered you the fight in December, but shit, dude, you fucking would have waited until 2018 if I would have said that shit. You're not healthy. If you're not healthy, it's just because your mental's not healthy. You're weak-minded, son. You need to fucking quit. Going up a weight class, you're going to get eaten up. Your credibility's shit. So regardless of what Ali said and what anybody else says, that bitch is trying to fucking manipulate the system by managing all the top five. So whatever he says, they ain't getting no belt anytime soon, because once I get done with Kevin Lee, they're going to have to deal with me.
And here's where it gets interesting, because obviously shortly afterwards, McGregor lost to Mayweather. Khabib posted a photo on Instagram challenging McGregor to a fight December 30th. Just wondering, what was your reaction to that? And why do you sort of feel like he's willing to fight McGregor, but he's not really committed to doing this rematch with you?
Oh, that's cute. That's the first thing I said. I was like, that's funny. I mean, he's probably eating a bowl of tiramisu while he's fucking tweeting that shit. Same thing, saying, damn that Chuck Norris. Like, he's so pissed off in his own little pissed off world where everybody's praising him that he started to believe that he is the actual champ. That he started actually believing his own shit. Khabib, you're a fat motherfucker, dude. You need to get off your lazy ass, go get on a bike and lose some weight and get into the actual fight game. Get a dietitian and do this shit, man, because honestly, I'm tired of hearing your fucking name. You're in my weight class and you're polluting this shit. You're making it, you're giving this name for the lightweight division a bad name, just like Conor McGregor. That bitch needs to defend and vacate, and you need to make weight. So the two top guys that are in this division are a bunch of bitches. They can't handle this shit professionally. I mean, McGregor, I have to give it to him. He's handling this thing. He's doing his own thing. But once I get this belt, there's nowhere else to run.
Well, we'll speak about the sort of landscape of the division later, but we want to talk about this fight with Lee. We actually spoke to Kevin on the show last week, and he brought up a fact that we didn't know, that you and him went to college together. He mentioned that he remembered you were a little bit weird and not smart. I mean, what do you remember about him in college? And do you have any memories of any interactions you may have had with him back in those college days?
If you do the math right, I was already out of college, and I never actually never wrestled with him. So the kid's lying through his fucking teeth. He's trying to promote himself any way that he can. I just got off the phone, actually, with my coach from Grand Valley, and he even says that he's really never even met Kevin Lee. So we're both kind of shaking our heads, and we're both thinking that this kid's a fucking punk, because his coach was never my coach. And so that changing the guards was a long time ago. And anytime I've ever went back to that college, I was always trying to praise people to do things great, or to be better than I ever have been there, and make sure you graduate and do these things, And I don't see where this knucklehead ever came out of Grand Valley State University Wrestling, because that's not what Grand Valley Wrestling is about. What I remember what Grand Valley Wrestling is about is what I'm doing, not what he's saying. So, you guys are going to get strictly what I said about that TF, because I heard the interview. I heard his little smart-ass comments. But ain't nobody going to save him once he gets inside that octagon with me. There's only 3 people allowed in that bitch. There's myself, the ref, and Kevin Lee's bitch ass. And once he's locked inside there, he's going to realize the hole that he dug is too fucking deep. And I'm the Grim Reaper that's going to cover that bitch.
I'm just wondering, Tony, talk to us about that stare down you guys had at the media day during the McGregor-Mayweather fight week. You guys looked into each other's eyes. Did you get anything from that stare down? Did you see anything when you looked into his eyes?
Fucking fake. I saw what Michael Chester didn't see. I saw this dude's all talk bark. I'm the dog in this fight. It don't matter the size of the dog in the fight. It just matters how big the bark is. And I got a fucking bite with me, too. This dude rubbed me the wrong way. And if you know anything about, my coach Billy, he's really big about, Team All Black and the haka.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty big about that, too. The fucking haka is amazing. I get fucking chills every time I see it and I hear it. It's awesome. It's sick. It reminds me of being in the octagon. And when I laid down my fern, when I was like that against Josh Thompson, when Josh Thompson pushed his forehead against mine, he stepped over my fern. I laid down my fern at UFC Countdown over at that thing at the UFC Performance Institute, and he stepped over my fucking fern. He disrespected me. I'm not going to disrespect him by saying a bunch of names and shit, but damn it, I'll point him, and he's going to feel fucking pain.
And by the way, Tony Ferguson getting a lot of fans right now in New Zealand who appreciate that shout out. I don't want to turn this into a fashion on the red carpet show, Tony, but we have to ask you your thoughts about Lee's pink Adidas tracksuit from the media day. Was it a yay or a nay?
He looked like a suit my last bitch wore. Just like straight up. I mean, if you really want to wear a fucking Adidas all outfit, you better be ready to breakdance battle. And no matter what color it is, that style, you better have some tempo with it. But this kid's got no style, no tempo, and no fucking rhythm. You might be able to shake your head back and forth looking like you have a fucking, like a tune in your head. But motherfucker, I'm going to dance circles around you. So that little pink outfit, that's cool. Like I said, it's the same shit that my last bitch wore. So.
Ouch. In terms of the matchup, Tony, obviously you're speaking about how you're going for that technical fault. You want to basically go in there and not even get hit even once. What advantages do you feel that you have when sort of looking at Lee's skill set? I'm just wondering, with sort of him having wrestling as his probably best weapon, how do you feel you go with him on the ground?
I'm a lot better than him. My 10th planet jiu-jitsu is a shitload better. And that's the other part. He had the nerve to disrespect Joe Rogan and my coach. Motherfucker.
What did he say?
He said something about 10 planet jiu-jitsu just kind of being there and being weird. So he's not only just calling me weird, he's calling jiu-jitsu and fucking everything fucking out there in the weird that's not him and Motown fake. I'm tired of that bullshit. It's time to put the fucking extinguisher on this flame.
I mean, everybody's really, really excited for this. And you spoke about your camp before and you going up to Big Bear. We know you obviously always have an exceptional camp when it comes to fight time. But are you doing anything different? Are you bringing anyone else in up to Big Bear to stay up there with you? Is there anyone else that you're bringing in for this one? Any special secrets that you can let us in on when it comes to preparation for this one?
Special secrets for this one. I'm bringing up my 2 dogs. So that way they make sure I finish my sets. I'm bringing up Darcy Knuckles. And actually, yes, I'm bringing up a couple different people. It's going to be interesting, man. Anytime that I've ever had to get ready for an opponent, I always only had a certain amount of people that were allowed to be in my corner. Well, with dealing with different opponents, I had to deal with different corners, and that's how I always played. I always played like an RPG game. If you guys are ever gamers. So with this enemy that I have here, I'm bringing in all my games, all my gamers, all my corners, all my peoples, all my material, all my energies, all my magic, all my whatevers you want to fucking call it. I'm going to put it all together in one little pot. And then, you know what? I'm going to bring that motherfucker. I'm going to bring something new on the table. Hopefully, not hopefully. I know I'm going to bring something new to the table. This is a dawning of a new age. I am the new age Johnny Cage. And this is my time, dude. Straight up.
New age Johnny Cage. I love it. And this is the thing, Tony. You were already supposed to fight for that interim title belt early in the year against Khabib. You know, obviously we all know what happened. Does this title shot sort of feel real to you yet, or will it only feel real once you step into the cage on fight night?
It's real, but the material, the belt itself, all of that, it matters. But I'm so damn focused on just the fight at hand. And if the opponent switches, I'm getting ready for not just one opponent. I'm getting ready for 4. I'm getting ready for Kevin Lee, Conor McGregor, and Khabib, including myself because I'm the worst enemy that I've ever faced. I'll always take myself out of my own game. And none of these last three are going to beat me, so they have their hands full.
Even though it's the interim title, Kevin Lee made a point during the interview where he said that he believes you guys are fighting for the real belt. How do you feel about this belt? Do you believe this is a fight for the real title, considering that Conor hasn't defended his belt for so long?
Absolutely. I mean, let me take Kevin Lee out of the picture for 1 second, because anytime that dude ever opens up his mouth, he's so irrelevant, it's not even funny. He might be fighting for the belt, but it's through privilege. I'm giving him this opportunity. So that bitch, when he's saying it's a real belt or a fake belt, he's saying the same shit that I said, but he's reiterating it. If it's real enough, if I can see it, if I can feel it, and I can hold it, that bitch is real enough for me. So this is my belt. This is what it's about. And everybody knows what it takes to get to where it's at. I didn't just talk my way to get there. So once I see that bitch around my waist, it's going to be awesome. It's just going to be the next step towards greatness.
Yeah, and Tony, you said just before about how you're preparing for, pretty much any opponent they throw at you. And you said something before in the interview about lowballing. Just wondering if you sort of spoke to the UFC before this fight or leading into this fight about contract negotiations. Were there any negotiations? Did you have any stipulations put in ahead of this fight just in case there was a last-minute opponent like last time, or a withdrawal? Is there anything in the contract like that?
There's a lot of different changes, but I'm not happy. How about that? I'm happy with what I've got. I'm excited. I'm very, dude. It's a fight.
Did you get an upgrade? Is the contract upgraded? Will you be making more for this one?
That's what the people wanted, right? The people wanted to see me fight. The people wanted to see me fight, so that's what I'm doing. Is I'm fighting. I'm competing. Why? Because my shelf life is great. I enjoy to compete, and I want to see my skills get better. If I have nobody that wants to fight, what am I going to do? Sit around? Fuck no. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to compete. So whatever's on my contract, whatever that number says, whatever it is, we worked hard on it. My management, myself, and my family to do this. We put this all together so that way you fans, so that way I can see where my ability is at. So that way when I come out of this with a flawless victory, you guys know exactly who the real champ is.
And a lot of people are super excited about that. They're also, looking ahead to possibly, you becoming champion and what would happen next. A lot of people are wondering, with Conor McGregor wanting to come back possibly for a December 30th card, if everything goes well in this fight, Tony, and you come out relatively uninjured, is it a date that's possible for you to make? Would you be interested in fighting again so soon if they presented you with a Conor McGregor fight for that December 30th card?
Absolutely. I believe that they absolutely need to. If that's my belt and he has the belt, they need to unify both belts. Fuck that Nate Diaz 3 shit. Both those bitches they want to try to act like they're going to go and make money. Nate don't want to fight. He's trying to recover from a fucking hit that he took with his management and all that other things. McGregor's going to defend or vacate. He's going to defend that belt. He needs to come back. If not, there goes his legacy. There goes the UFC shit. Legitimately, why do we have rankings? Why do we have a belt system? Why do we have all this other stuff?
Tony, would you be frustrated if obviously, you go in there, you beat Kevin Lee, you win the interim belt, and then the UFC decide, oh, hey, we're going to go with this Nate Diaz fight, or they try and set it up together?
No, I actually think I'm a little bit more frustrated because I took the wrong exit right now. We want to talk about future fights and all this other bullshit, but in ultimate reality, I don't give two fucks. The fight that's the most important at hand is the one that's most important. That's the one motherfuckers need to get excited about. Because obviously everybody fucking knows what the fuck I can do to Nate Diaz. And look, there goes my swearing jar. I've been acting like I needed to get, my shit together for my kids. But straight up, you guys want me to talk about those other fighters? They're a bunch of bitches. They want to go and they want to talk. Look, if we can fucking put this shit on a video, we can make this a money fight. If you guys really want to get gangster, let's fucking do that shit. If you want to fucking put it on money, let's put it on paper, Nate. I will fucking stalk and slap the shit out of you, kid. You don't fucking know me, dude. Straight up. Same thing with Conor McGregor. You guys are a bunch of bitches and you guys are a bunch of fakes. If you want to fight while we're here in the UFC, why don't you come and sign on the dotted line after you get your shit together and defend your fucking belt, Conor?
All right, well, let's get back to the fight that matters. Kevin Lee said that he's going to quote-unquote fuck you up at UFC 216. And we know you told Jim Edwards at MMA Uno that you see a possible Das choke win. Tell us, how are you feeling about the finish right now? Are you still going for this Das choke finish, or have you kind of switched thoughts as to how you see this fight playing out?
The fight, I've played over the fight in my head many, 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 many times. I've pictured it going from my feet, from my footwork, my head movement, to the end of my hand snapping his head back like a Pez dispenser, to him dropping to the floor like Leonard Santos did, and me hitting a thars upon him trying to square back up in turtle position. I mean, I can go on and on. With these long drives that I'm taking, I think of scenarios like you would not believe. And I really see it going either way. But I really want to demonstrate what mixed martial arts is all about. So in order to do that, I have to touch upon other subjects. I have to demonstrate my Muay Thai. I have to demonstrate my boxing etiquette, hit and not get hit. I have to demonstrate the conditioning and the tough-nosedness of wrestling, USA wrestling. I have to demonstrate my ability to scramble and ability to catch and to know what I'm doing as far as my submission grappling, as far as my 10-planet jiu-jitsu. This kid is going to give me opportunities everywhere I see, and I'm going to capitalize on every single one that he does. I'm a great counter fighter, but you saw in the last fight that Mayweather had versus McGregor, he took an opportunity to go and took a chance because he said he wanted the fans to get something out of it. Well, I'm always putting myself in different positions, leaving my face open so I get hit, so the fans get the fight that they want. But I'm going to give you fans the fight that you don't want. I'm going to give you the fight that it's not me all bloody. It's going to be Kevin Lee's blood all over the place. It's going to be my hands hitting him and his missing me. And it's going to be smiling inside that octagon. It's going to be me dancing the salsa moves and that merengue. And he's going to be looking around like, holy shit, I can't believe I just fucking went to war with this kid. Because as much as I want to say that I hate the kid, I don't. He's an athlete. Do I want to kick his ass? Absolutely. But I respect him to where he's gotten to where he is at. But I said it in my interviews. His skill level is not there yet. And his caliber is not there. They rushed him into this one, and it's not my fault. This kid's going to get it October 7th.
Wow, very excited to hear that there'll be a new and improved and evolved, even more tactical edition of Tony Ferguson. Just as we let you go, Tony, where's the belt going? Assuming you go in there, you beat him in the main event of UFC 216. Is there a spot in the house? Have you made one already?
Absolutely. There's a spot in my house that's right next to my Ultimate Fighter trophy. But the one thing I would want to do first is, I want to show my son, I want to show my wife, and show my dad and my coaches. That's the first thing I want to do. I want to take it around to my coaches that helped me to get to where I'm at, and the people, and let them hold it and see it and kind of just enjoy it as well, and then put that bitch away and then go for that real motherfucker.
Well, there it is, guys. A fresh and exciting main event for UFC 216. Tony Ferguson finally gets his shot at the UFC lightweight interim title. Make sure to follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Tony Ferguson XT. The fight goes down October 7th in the US, October 8th in Australia. And those of you lucky enough to get tickets, they're now on sale, so jump on before they are gone. What did you say, Tony, as we wrap up?
Hey, you know what? You guys followed me on my way to victory, and thank you very much for being fucking sweet. So victory on 3. 1, 2, 3. Hooah! Follow me at Tony Ferguson XT. Got you guys. Solid. Good on you.
Awesome.
Hey, this is Jimmy Manuel. You listen to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Joining us here on the program is a friend of Submission Radio, known from all the adventures of the buffet of 2016. He does amazing work, nerdcoremovement.com. I feel like, Damon, this thing is bigger than anything else right now because, nothing bigger than Game of Thrones, and his breakdowns and shows are just spectacular. Of course, he does work with Flow Combat and a lot of other websites. Damon Martin, who is friends with, looks like online with Seth Rogen now, joins us on Submission Radio. Damon, welcome to the program. Talk to us about this. I go on the internet, I'm looking for my dose of entertainment, and I see a friend of mine on Facebook is now a celebrity as Seth Rogen has retweeted his Preacher breakdown article. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I did basically a kind of like a review of Preacher season 2, and Seth Rogen, who is one of the executive producers on the show, actually read it and retweeted it, which is very nice. And
what did he say? He said this is nice with an exclamation point.
This is nice with an exclamation point. And what's funny is I actually met him at Comic-Con. I did an interview with the Preacher panel, which is how I got that article done. And it was funny because when I was talking to him and the guy who plays Cassidy on the show Preacher, they actually commented on my tattoos. So it's I actually got to meet Seth Rogen. He complimented my tattoos. So I'm 2 for 2 with Seth Rogen right now.
That's awesome. Just curious, what did he say about your tattoos? I feel like that's a very close and personal thing. You guys would have been standing right next to each other for him to say something about your tattoos. That's a lot of respect there.
Yeah. I was taking photos of the cast, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, that's a pretty intense tattoo you got." And I mentioned that it's actually the inside, an X-ray of a MacBook Pro. And Seth Rogen's like, "Oh wow, that's awesome." So yeah, that was my Seth Rogen interaction, and then he retweeted my thing today. So yeah, me and Seth are on a first name basis now. I think I'm gonna hang out with him when I go to LA. So he's a good guy.
I have a feeling it's going to be impossible for us to get you on the show in the future, Damon. So, but because this may be the last time, I do want to say thank you for everything that you've done. And you're a great man. And maybe you can bring Seth to the buffets next year if we go. I'm just saying. But let's talk about UFC 215, because I feel like we're in this point where everybody was focused on the Mayweather-McGregor fight. Everybody was focused on boxing. And then obviously we had that Rotterdam card last weekend. But people weren't really back into the swing of things when it comes to MMA. And now we've got UFC 215 coming up. People are getting excited because there's some fun matchups on there. Talk to us about the excitement meter, the Damon Martin excitement meter for this event. Where are we at right now?
Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say right now I'm at about a 6 or a 7, which doesn't sound that excited, only because, it's still... It's a good card. It's not a great card. And when you have a card like that, you get excited, but it's also, you're still, I think a lot of people, myself included, are still dealing with the hangover from the whole Mayweather-McGregor thing. And it's just exciting to see some real high-level MMA back in our lives. I love seeing Demetrius Johnson perform. He is as good as advertised, but we have to be honest in saying that he is a massive favorite. I think the odds on him right now are like minus 1125 or something ridiculous. Wow. So, obviously that's tough. I'm really excited about the Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko fight. I really like that fight. I'm excited to see what Gilbert Melendez can do at 145. So this is a solid card. But like I said, maybe on Friday they'll amp up a little bit more. But right now I'd say I'm around a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, look, I actually like this card more than I initially thought. There's some fun matchups. Ovarian Tyson Pedro's on the card as well. Gilbert Melendez coming down to featherweight. Sarah McMahon, she's had an interesting story. Henry Cejudo's got a fight that kind of makes it look like, they're trying to give him a bit of a layup. I think there's some fun things here. But the interesting thing, Damon, is you've got this, you've got Mighty Mouse and Amanda Nunes in the top spots. And does it almost feel to you like this is the pay-per-view for, people who basically made Dana White's shit list, at least recently? And do you think it's kind of intentionally a card light on names? Because the UFC knew that people will be strapped for cash, because of the $100 price tag with Maymack, just a couple of weeks ago.
It's potentially that way. I mean, if you look at September pay-per-views in the history of the UFC, they're typically weaker cards. They don't do a ton of business in September. I mean, they've had a couple of shows go over 400,000 pay-per-view buys, but September is not typically a big month for the UFC because they put so much weight into the summer, and that happens every year. They put a lot of weight into July, and a lot of times with August. Last year was, Diaz McGregor 2 in August, and that came right off of, UFC 200 in July. So typically they put a lot of their promotional push into the summer, and those September and October cards typically fall by the wayside a little bit. So it doesn't really shock me. And listen, we got to be honest with ourselves. This is not me taking a knock on the guy. I think he's tremendous, and you will not find a bigger fan of the skill set of Demetrius Johnson. But I think everybody on the show right now can agree that he's just not a draw. He's never been a draw, and him headlining a card against a guy who is a plus 800 underdog probably isn't helping matters much.
And I mean, what do you think about the fact that TJ Dillashaw, that was the guy that for a long time, we believed could possibly be fighting DJ. It was a fight that a lot of fans were really excited about. How do you feel about the fact that Ray Borg did ultimately end up as DJ's opponent this weekend?
I feel bad for Ray Borg in a lot of ways because he was offered this fight before the whole TJ Dillashaw thing happened, and it's not his fault. You know what I mean? He was offered the fight. He accepted the fight. You feel bad for the guy. But the honest truth of the matter is this. What Demetrius Johnson has needed and continues to need is an opponent that's going to be matched up with him, where there's going to be a preponderance of people who are picking the opponent instead of picking Demetrious Johnson. We haven't had that since his first fight with John Dodson, and even that, ended up surprising a lot of people that John Dodson, clipped him and caught him a couple of times, but the rematch was lopsided. Joseph Benavidez, they kind of duked out that rivalry very early in the division. I mean, he beat him by split decision to win the title, and then he knocked him out in the rematch, and that was his second or third title defense, I think. So it's a long time ago at this point. He's had no equals. I mean, when you think about the greatness, and again, I'm taking the current situation out of context, but Jon Jones, when you look at Jon Jones, what makes Jon Jones so great is how talented he is. But then you have that Alexander Gustafsson fight where you truly believe that he was getting pushed to the limit. And then you have a guy as great as Daniel Cormier, who in any other era would be the best light heavyweight of our era, of our time, as an equal, a guy that goes out there and just makes you believe that he could beat Jon Jones. Demetrious doesn't have that. He doesn't have that equal. And TJ Dillashaw felt like that equal. He felt like a guy that if he could make that cut to 125 pounds, you could look at him and say, this is a guy who might just beat Demetrious Johnson. And that's the problem. I don't know anyone outside of his camp or close to him that's picking Ray Borg to win this upset. And that's a tough thing to market. That's a tough thing to promote when you're so confident that the guy on the other side of the ring or the other side of the octagon is just going to win.
Do you think Demetrious is sort of a bit of a victim of his own success? Because a lot of people, on the internet, in the interwebs, we see it on Sherdog and forums and Twitter and everything, they all say, who's he beaten? He hasn't beaten any former champs. But I guess in the flyweight division's case, it's a lot younger than the others. You don't have that history other than, say, in Japan, and obviously it doesn't come close to, say, the light heavyweight division, where you've got guys like Shogun and Rampage and, the Pride division of Vanderlei. Jon Jones has beaten so many of these former champs, like Lyoto Machida and Rashad Evans, and, has gone on this path of destruction, whereas a lot of these guys in the flyweight division, Demetrious has been dominating from the very beginning, so there aren't those former champs that he can sort of beat. Do you think that's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword, that he's been so dominant that it's worked against him?
Absolutely. 100%. You nailed it right on the head right there. I mean, listen, the only guy that Demetrious has really beaten that's been a proven, established guy that everyone kind of knew going into it is Joseph Benavidez. I mean, even John Dodson, he was the Ultimate Fighter winner. But, I mean, just being completely honest, how much weight does that carry these days? And there's nobody else. I mean, Henry Cejudo was a gold medalist in the Olympics who probably, based on record alone, shouldn't have even really been in the ring or in the cage with Demetrious Johnson when he got the title shot. I mean, had he really impressed us that much? It was almost like, okay, well, we don't have anyone else. Let's put this super prospect in there and let him take a shot. And that's the problem. And that's why I personally think that Demetrious has struggled so much in the whole pound-for-pound discussion when a guy like Jon Jones is available and not suspended. I think that's why Demetrious Johnson doesn't get mentioned in the same breath of the all-time greats like Anderson or Jon Jones or Georges St. Pierre. And I think that's why Demetrious breaking the record for the most title defenses at 11 this weekend. Yes, it'll be the record, but I still think more people will hold up Anderson Silva's record in a higher regard because of the level of competition he faced and the things he did while champion, like beating Forrest Griffin, like beating Stephan Bonner, like beating James Irvin at a different weight class. Should that weigh on our minds, and when the numbers tell us that Demetrious is the most dominant champion in history? Probably not, but listen, at the end of the day, people's opinions are what matter most, and it's just like in any other sport. If they think you're the better guy and you've done more, they're going to give you more credit. And I think that is where the problem lies with Demetrious Johnson. He's a phenomenal. If there was a creative fighter mode in video games and we're trying to create the perfect fighter, Demetrious Johnson would be the freaking mold. But the problem is he just doesn't have the competition. He doesn't have the names on his resume that make you go, wow, man, I can't believe he beat him.
And with Ray Borg's weigh-in history and him admitting that he's still getting the hang of weight cutting, is anybody a little bit nervous that the main event may go to shit if Borg misses weight again and makes this a non-title fight, Damon?
It's possible. I mean, listen, I think Ray has learned his lesson, I hope, but he's had a couple of incidents. And I mean, listen, if you would have told me, 6 months ago that Johnny Hendricks was going to miss weight at middleweight, I would have said, you're out of your mind. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And guess what happened? He missed weight at middleweight. So, listen, he wouldn't be the first guy to miss weight in a title fight. I hope it doesn't happen, but man, you mentioning it right now just makes me kind of. I'm going to be sitting with one ass cheek off the chair on Friday morning watching those weigh-ins to find out if we actually have a title fight or not.
Yeah, you got that nervous Simpsons collar pull, like, and then there's obviously the Amanda Nunes situation from UFC 213. So who knows? I mean, it is a very real possibility that Neil Magny versus Rafael dos Anjos will be main eventing this weekend, but hopefully not. It's such a weird situation because you've got this celebrated champion, Demetrius Johnson, going in there, breaking their record, and it just, in all honesty, seems like not that many people care. I'm just curious, sort of going back to this whole TJ Dillashaw discussion and looking at Demetrius Johnson, because he kind of has this, feeling, and I can't really argue with it, that, he's going in there, he's making the same amount of money, and he's not really going to budge. In a lot of ways, he doesn't need to go out of his own weight class. It's not really fair to ask a champion, hey, Jon Jones, you have to go to heavyweight, or, George St. Pierre, you have to go to middleweight. Both terrible examples, because that's pretty much exactly what was, kind of going to happen. But what do you think is the solution for Mighty Mouse? And do you think it should have been TJ Dillashaw? I know there's a big debate over, meritocracy, protecting divisions. Is there any solution to this, Damon?
Well, here, the solution was TJ Dillashaw was willing to cut to 125, and it didn't happen. And I think that's why Demetrius kind of took it on the chin from a lot of fans and a lot of journalists, honestly, because, that was a guy, no one was asking Demetrius to go up. No one was asking Demetrius to change weight classes. No one was asking Demetrius to fight at a catch weight. TJ Dillashaw was willing to go down, to fight him. A former champion was willing to cut down to 125 pounds to face him, and it didn't happen. So that's the problem, and that's why the perception of Demetrius Johnson is so much different, right or wrong. And like I said, I'm not justifying it. I'm just explaining why I believe it's happening. Than the difference of a guy like Anderson Silva, who when the UFC needed him to step up and fight at a different weight class because they needed a main event, that's what he did. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, and I've advocated for a long time that it's completely okay for everyone to stay in their own weight divisions. I don't know when it became this decree that you had to move up in weight because you're dominant at a different weight class. But that being said, when you got a guy like Anderson, who was so defined by his willingness to fight anybody, anywhere, anytime, at any weight class, while also becoming the longest reigning champion in UFC history, versus a guy like Demetrius Johnson, who has fought and actually was a really good bantamweight at one point in his career, when it seems like he's almost doing anything to avoid a fight with TJ Dillashaw, it's not a good look. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong, and I promise you I'm not, but listen, perception is what matters, and the perception is that he didn't want to fight the tougher fight in TJ Dillashaw.
And I think as well, for a lot of fans, no matter how good a legacy is, they want to see a person have fights that they care about, and it's those fights that fans care about that really create a legacy and make it even deeper. So in a lot of ways, I guess Demetrius missed that boat. But let's do the prediction here, because you spoke about the odds, Damon, but I'm curious, is anybody here actually picking Borg? Is anybody going to blow our minds right now, Casper? I'm looking at you. Any mind-blowing predictions here?
Sorry, man. Sorry to disappoint. I'd love to blow your mind right now, but when I look at Ray Borg, he's a guy who knows? What is he, 23 years old? Who knows how long Demetrius Johnson's going to stick around? I feel like while he's unbeaten and undefeated, he'll just keep going, keep pushing it, and seeing how long he can extend this streak for. Maybe at some point, Ray Borg in 7 or 10 years becomes the future of the division. He's coming along nicely, but I just don't see any massive skills or part in his game that is a really huge threat to Demetrius Johnson. He's really good on the ground. He had some really exciting scrambles in his last fight, got out of some really dicey positions, but when you've got Demetrius Johnson going in there and submitting Wilson Hayes, a BJJ black belt, a guy who that was the strongest part of his game, and Demetrius beat him there, I don't see really a whole lot that Ray Borg has for him. I'm sort of in this position where I'm not really expecting, and I say this with respect, I'm not expecting Ray Borg to go in there and win at all. I'm more curious as far as what is the game plan. I'm just curious because he's got Brandon Gibson, he's got Coach Wink, he's got Greg Jackson. I'm just curious what they've sort of concocted and their idea is to beat Demetrius Johnson. So I'm curious about that, but I think Demetrius Johnson at some point, it'll go to the ground, and I think that Demetrius Johnson submits him probably in the 4th round. That's my official prediction. What about you, Damon?
Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier on my podcast, and I'll kind of repeat it here. when you're Demetrious Johnson, it's like you almost sound like you're downgrading the opponents by saying that they're just not going to win. It's like saying, man, Alexander Gustafsson is an amazing fighter, but I can't see him beating Jon Jones. Or Daniel Cormier, man, one of the greatest of all time, but I can't see him beating Jon Jones. That kind of thing, and that's where we're at here. I think Ray Borg is a supremely talented kid, great wrestling, tenacious. Lots of heart in all his fights, and I think he's improved tremendously, on the ground and on his feet, working with guys like Brandon Gibson. But I just can't pick him to beat Demetrious Johnson. I mean, the guy is as good as advertised. As I said, I'm not even kidding. He is the mold for how you create a fighter on a video game. He's that good. His boxing is on point. His wrestling is amazing. His speed is incredible. His takedowns, his submissions, everything. I just don't see a way that Ray Borg beats him in this particular fight. So I'm going to say Demetrious Johnson. Did you say 4th round submission? I might actually agree with you on that, because I think he'll tire Ray Borg out a little bit in those first couple of rounds, and I think he'll go for the kill in round 4, round 5. So I might have to just agree with that pick and say, right around 4th round or 5th round submission to finish the fight.
And I'm on the same page as you guys here, but with Borg, I think, look, this is a good opportunity. You go out there, if he can win something, if he can win a round, if he can put Demetrious in a dicey situation, even just for a little bit, I think he earns a lot of respect from fans, and it really helps him with his career. As long as he goes out there, shows something, challenges Demetrious in some kind of part of the fight, I think he can still come out looking a lot better than him going in. But I agree with you guys. I think it's going to be a 4th round stoppage. But to me, I'm going to go with the TKO to mix things up. Sprinkle a little bit of herbs and spices along this prediction. Damon, let's talk about Francis Ngannou, who was robbed of a chance to potentially show why he deserves the next title shot when JDS was forced off the card for being flagged by USADA. I mean, the whole situation is just ridiculous. It upset everybody. But what's next for Ngannou here? Because there's no clear path at the moment.
Yeah, I know Francis had mentioned, maybe a title shot. I don't want to see that. Don't get me wrong. I think Francis Ngannou is a supremely talented guy. But listen, I make no bones about it. I think Stipe Miocic could potentially become the greatest heavyweight of all time. I mean, the guy is nasty knockout power, tremendous wrestling. I don't think he's ready for it. His biggest win is over Andrei Arlovsky, who's currently riding, a 5-fight losing streak? No, you don't. You're throwing him to the wolves. Maybe he's ready, but there's just nothing in the proof to say that he's really ready for this fight. I think you got to give him, I know Alistair Overeem said he would gladly accept a fight with Ngannou maybe in December. I think that would be tremendous. You got a couple of cards, one in Detroit, one at the end of the year. Maybe give him Overeem. Now, if he can beat Overeem, if he can go out there and knock out or beat Alistair Overeem, no doubt about it, Francis Ngannou is ready for the title shot. But right now, with the biggest win on your resume against Andrei Arlovsky, where Andrei's at in his career right now, you can't throw him in there with Stipe. You're basically Cejudoing him. You're basically saying we're going to give this prospect to our number one guy, and when he gets knocked out, it's going to take him, potentially years to get back to that spot again.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. It's such a roll of the dice with Overeem, because it's like, Overeem, he has the susceptibility to get knocked out, and obviously Francis Ngannou, his skills are very raw, but he has that KO power, so I can definitely see him going in there and knocking out Overeem, and if that happens, that's great, because he gets that win that he needs over a marquee opponent, puts him on the map. Overeem's free at the moment, he's free, so you can make that fight relatively quickly, but then if Overeem goes there and just picks him apart with his superior technical striking, where are we? The prospect is done, not done, but, on the sidelines for a little bit, and Overeem is sort of in a position to maybe challenge for the title, but I don't think he's sort of ready yet, especially not after the loss of Stipe and obviously the Fabrizio Verdum win. And then you've got Cain Velasquez, who a lot of people want to and expect to see against Stipe Miocic, but that's the thing, who knows if he's even going to be ready, and who knows what's going on with Stipe's contract negotiations. So in a perfect world, Cain and Stipe fight later in the year, but what if Cain isn't healthy and you need to keep Stipe active, and you're like, well, we're not going to give Overeem the rematch, we're not going to give Verdum the rematch, Cain's out, Francis is number 4, so by default, he gets it. So even though I agree with you, I don't think he's necessarily ready, although considering his knockout power, you just never know what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Stipe versus Francis Ngannou, just, by default. And you mentioned mentioned UFC 218 in Detroit. I don't know why, but I gravitate to that card, and I think if it's going to happen, it wouldn't surprise me if it's there. Otherwise, I don't know. I would love to see him face, say, the winner of Derek Brunson and Fabrizio Verdum, because I feel like Verdum might be a slightly easier path for Francis Ngannou, not necessarily going to get knocked out on his feet. But, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Dennis?
It's a tough one, because you don't want to destroy the legend of Francis, but because, you know, he is a fresh face, and like you guys said, there's a lot of not as exciting rematches there for Stipe, but at the same time, like, a part of me still feels like he's not there to have a title shot, and, you know, should beat a couple of other sort of legends to get there. But then what if he loses against those legends and you lose the ability to put him in that title match? So I don't know. Maybe the Overeem, maybe the winner of Verdum and Lewis. I mean, the other thing is Mark Hunt is creeping up in the wings, and if he wins in Sydney in November, he'll be looking for a big-name opponent as well. And, I mean, that's a risk, though, because Mark Hunt is still so good. You might have your hope for the division gone if Mark Hunt beats him. So very, very difficult for me to see. Look, I wouldn't be offended. Let's put it this way. I wouldn't be offended if he got the title shot, and I wouldn't be offended if he got the winner of Verdum or Lewis or Alistair over him. But yeah, it's the heavyweight division is definitely, you know, struggling, because you see Frank Mir's gone, Roy Nelson's gone. This is why these guys come in so handy, because the division doesn't usually have too many new names, and the more old school guys that you lose who used to be previous champions and headliners, you know, the less you can build up these guys, and the quicker you're going to kind of push them up to title contention. So I don't know. Maybe Cain Velasquez is still getting his Airbnb ready, or maybe he's back in the gym, maybe getting ready to fight again. Damon, what do you think about the rumors of Dana White apparently contacting Eddie Hearn about a possible Overeem versus Anthony Joshua MMA fight in 2018 while we're on the topic of heavyweights? Because when I heard this, I thought there's no way Anthony Joshua would go for anything like this. Is there a glimmer? Is there a chance for Joshua to even consider this?
I don't think so. You know, Anthony Joshua is on the cusp of becoming a superstar in boxing. And while he's not going to be making Floyd Mayweather money anytime soon, he's not going to be making, you know, pennies on the dollar either. You know, he just booked his next fight against a guy that nobody on this call right now has probably heard of. But, you know, that doesn't mean he couldn't be set up for a bigger payday next year against one of the American champions or something like that. I just don't see it happening. And two, why would he fight Overeem? That's the one that doesn't make sense. The guy who's been calling him out nonstop has been Stipe Miocic, and it sounded like the UFC was trying to finally give Stipe that kind of money fight that he wants by matching him up against Jon Jones in December. They were talking about that. I can't imagine they're going to say, okay, we're going to dangle Jon Jones. Now that he's suspended, we're going to give Anthony Joshua to Overeem. That just makes no sense whatsoever. So, no, I don't buy it. I didn't buy it from the beginning. But if it was true, I don't buy Overeem as the opponent. I know it sounds crazy that Anthony Joshua would step in on day one in MMA and get a title shot against frickin' Stipe Miocic, but that's the bigger fight. I mean, that's a much bigger fight than Overeem. And, you know, they've gone back and forth on social media. So, no, I don't buy it at all. And if I did buy it, I don't buy it against Overeem.
All right, well, let's move down to the card. I'm with you as well. I don't expect that to happen at all. Co-main event, Nunes versus Shevchenko. The fight that didn't happen at UFC 213. I mean, everyone's broken this one down already. I'm just curious, do you feel any differently about it? I personally think that Shevchenko is going to go in there. I'm expecting her to win via decision. I think that Nunes, she's going to be ultra aggressive in the early rounds. It may cost her, and I think that Shevchenko, she's smart enough and she's experienced enough to be able to avoid that early damage. And I think if it goes into the later rounds, it's definitely not going to be an advantage for Amanda Nunes. We saw with that first fight originally, Shevchenko was really coming back, and I think if she has another 2 extra rounds, I don't see her putting Nunes away unless Nunes gets really, really tired in the later rounds. But I think she's definitely going to edge out a decision. What do you think, Damon?
I agree. I'm going with Valentina Shevchenko by decision. I think that, you know, Amanda Nunes is an incredibly fast starter, as we all know, and I think she will do some damage early, but I think Valentina has great defense, both standing and on the ground, as we saw in her fight with Juliana Pena. I think she'll play enough defense off the mat to start tiring away at Amanda Nunes, and unfortunately, you know, listen, we got to go by what proof is out there. And I know Amanda has said numerous times that she's addressed the cardio issues, but we haven't seen it. And until I see it, I'm not going to be convinced. And unfortunately, we saw it against Kat Zingano, and we saw it in the third round against Valentina Shevchenko, that she does struggle when the fight doesn't get over in those first couple of rounds. And if you watch that fight with Valentina Shevchenko the first time, she dominated round one. Round two was a lot closer. Now, she won the round, don't get me wrong, but you could see that she was kind of losing sail in her wins in her sail a little bit. So I like Valentina kind of stretch this fight out, and by about round three, I expect her to take over, and I like her to win by decision.
I agree with you guys. I think there's going to be a title switch here, and Shevchenko's new champion. And hopefully Nunes comes into this fight, has a good weight cut, and is looking fresh in the fight as well, because that's going to be a big thing for her. She needs as much cardio as she can get. Just quickly, Damon, RDA takes on Neil Magny. And this is an interesting fight, because if RDA wins and takes the number 6 spot, it kind of looks like he can possibly have a pretty quick road to a title shot. Do you see him beating Magny? And do you think we may see RDA fighting for the title sooner than a lot of people expect?
I won't be surprised whatsoever if RDA wins, but I'm actually picking Neil Magny. Neil Magny's conditioning is on point. He's going to have – he doesn't use it as much because he's not as well known as a striker. He has a 10-inch reach advantage on non-off-field. 10-inch reach advantage. That's insane. We keep doubting Neil Magny. I mean, listen, the guy's lost twice in the past, whatever it is, like 3 years. He lost to Lorenz Larkin in by far the best performance of Lorenz's career, outside of maybe his win over Robbie Lawler. And he lost to Damian Maia. Again, there's no shame in that. The guy goes out there and just consistently surprises us, and yet somehow he's once again an underdog to a former champion, granted, but only a second fight at welterweight, and it's not like Dos Anjos is a big welterweight. So I'm actually going with Magny to pull off the upset in this one. I don't think it'll be pretty, and I don't think he's going to go out there and submit or knock out Rafael Dos Anjos, but I think he can edge him out in the decision.
Ah, there you go. Damon, we'll let you go in just a moment. Just quickly, I'm curious what you think about this Jeremy Stephens versus Gilbert Melendez fight. I find it pretty fascinating. Gilbert Melendez obviously returning from the sidelines after a long time, another long layoff, and he's making his UFC featherweight debut. He's fought as low as 143 pounds back in the day in Shudo, but what are you expecting from a Gilbert that's dropping down to featherweight, so late in his career after going, 3 in the loss column at lightweight? Do you think it's smart to sort of try and go in there and try and rejuvenate his career? He's certainly not a big guy. What do you think about that?
I'm looking forward to it. I would say outside of the co-main event with Nunes and Shevchenko, this is the fight I'm most looking forward to, just because the intriguing factor of Gilbert Melendez dropping down to featherweight. I talked to Gil a couple weeks ago. He sounds very positive and sounds very happy. He was a guy who, used to be one of the bigger lightweights in the division, and then as guys kept getting bigger and weight cutting got more scientific, he ended up being one of the smaller guys in the division, which is kind of crazy. I mean, I mentioned to him, I said, one time Jens Pulver was a lightweight, and now you couldn't even imagine Jens Pulver standing next to Conor McGregor. Times change, and so I think he'll do all right. But listen, man, Jeremy Stephens hits like a freaking truck, and I talked to Jeremy as well, and he said he's made some adjustments with his coaches, and said that he's no longer just going out there looking for that one punch knockout. He kind of got a little bit too obsessed with that one big shot. And he really wanted to get away from that to where he could win fights when he didn't get that one big knockout shot. So I think this is a really intriguing matchup, and it's going to kind of tell a story for one guy or the other where they're going. Either Gilbert's going to lose 4 in a row, which, as we all know, is devastating, although I think you do have to take into context a little bit Gilbert's 3 losses. I mean, Edson Barbosa, lost the title fight to Anthony Pettis, and he lost a really close kind of, I wouldn't say controversial, but a very close split decision to Eddie Alvarez. I don't think there's any shame in any of those losses, but 4 losses in a row is not good. And then for Jeremy Stephens, he's had a couple of setbacks as well recently with, Frankie Edgar and the other fight he lost recently. So this is kind of that transcendent moment for one of these guys.
Well, Damon, we appreciate the time. It's exciting times for MMA fans for a fun card this weekend, and I'm sure there'll be some exciting matchups. As we wrap up, we have to get your thoughts on something that was a little bit cringy this week in the world of MMA and the WWE when we saw Ronda Rousey and the girls go face to face with Becky Lynch, with Ric Flair's daughter, and the other one, I think her name is Bailey. And they all stood there. They looked at each other. It was a bit awkward. And I think Ronda Rousey put down her purse, which I think is chick language for shit's about to go down. What was your reaction to the whole promo and the way it came off?
It was kind of funny and really cheesy. if anything, what I learned in that moment is that Ronda Rousey should call Paul Heyman immediately and ask him to cut her promos. I think it's destiny that Ronda eventually, goes to WWE, because I think, what we've seen out of her acting career, I don't know that she's going to be contending for any Oscars anytime soon. And so I think that, WWE would be a perfect place for her to kind of display her acting and athleticism a little bit. And then, maybe she signs on to Paul Heyman. It'll all work out. But that was a little cheesy for my taste. And I love pro wrestling. Let me make that clear. I love pro wrestling. But that was just like, it was almost too obvious. It wasn't even like one of those kind of like, fake wrestling moments where you're like, it's a confrontation. Like, it was almost like, this is so orchestrated, it's not even cool.
I don't know why you need Paul Heyman. You can have Edmund walking down to the ring and introducing her and we're not talking, but I don't know. I guess I'm just missing the point here, guys. Damon Munn and his podcast Fight Society, which, by the way, some good guests this week as we wrap up. You had Daniel Cormier on the program, which in a really good interview. You had Gilbert Melendez on the program as well. So, guys, if you don't check out Damon's show, you're missing out on a great deal of enjoyment. I know we've had a few listeners actually hit us up and tell us that they've been checking out your program now, Damon. So, it's $1 a listener, so roughly you owe us a few thousand, but that's okay. We'll get it in the next buffet. And the guys do talk about what did the UFC make a bigger mistake by not signing Ben Askren than missing out on Fedor. So find out the answer to that question by checking into the episode this week. Of course, check out his work on Flow Combat and follow him on Twitter at Damon Martin. Damon, thank you so much for coming onto the program. Your wealth of knowledge is appreciated, my friend. And if you, Seth Rogen, want to come over to Australia and, I don't know, just hang, I got a spare bedroom out the front.
Happy to do it. Always appreciate you having it on. I'll give Seth a call. We'll see what we can't put together.
All right, well, there you go, guys. You heard it from Damon himself. It's official. Seth Rogen will be part of the next Submission Radio buffet, maybe even on the episode. In all likeliness, never a million years. But maybe, you never know. On this Ronda Rousey thing, you mentioned her purse. I found it funny how when Ronda Rousey took her purse off the shoulder, it dropped like there was like 60 bricks in there. Did you notice? It was like off the shoulder, bang. It's like, what have you got in your purse there? Are there some kind of like, is there a steel chair in your purse? In all honesty, though, it was like one of the most cringiest things I've seen in a long time. What did you think, Dennis?
Yeah, it reminded me of the ladies of the night down there in Sydney and King's Cross that carried the bricks in their purses to beat up people. And Casper, you had a close encounter with one of those ladies once when we went up there. I don't know if we should tell the story today or not, but basically, you angered them. You were shooting some video, and I think we were all lucky to escape with our lives, Casper.
Well, they were hookers or prostitutes, depending on what you call them, where you're from. And there was a mother and daughter team, believe it or not, and they were very angry. And then I de-escalated the situation. And then the mother was telling her daughter, like, he's a nice guy, he's a nice guy. They were on the street. We weren't in alleys. It was a situation in the middle of a street outside of a club, and they were explaining to us how they keep bricks in their purses in case anybody attacks them. So they're crafty, those ladies of the night.
Oh, for sure. No, it definitely makes a lot of sense. But look, with this promo, obviously it was really crap, and we don't really give two shits about it too much. But the reason why we're talking about it is just because it's like cringe-worthy factor times a million. But the thing with it as well is, this is a shout out to Christian, our videographer, who always pulls me up on this. But whenever the WWE does anything these days, I'm like the harshest critic ever, because back in the day, like a lot of the listeners that we've got now, we were all probably fans of the Attitude Era with The Rock and Stone Cold, and things were really cool back then. And now, like, they can't get anything right. They fucked up Sting's thing, and they mess everything up with all the classic guys that have come back. They basically screwed them over one way or another. And you think, you got Ronda Rousey here. Do you guys want to actually put some effort into this and make this something special? You could just tell that on the day they were there for this Mae Young whatever thing, and they're like, we can get a quick video here and build it up. But do you want to do that? It's like if me and Casper got an opportunity to interview someone really good, but we only had a minute to do it, and we knew it was going to be terrible, but we were still going to do it to put it up so we could get clicks. We wouldn't do that. We'd want to give you guys a quality experience. And I reckon they kind of dropped the ball with this one, because not only was it lame and corny and just shot terribly, and you could tell the pro wrestling chicks just weren't like really across it either, but it just kills the vibe and the excitement. And if she does come back, instead of doing it properly and she comes out of the crowd and it's like at an actual event and not in the back near some rubbish bin and near the garbage and some rats running across the thing, you know, she comes out of the crowd, she actually does something. Whoa, you know, like at WrestleMania with The Rock. That was good. This was behind a rubbish dump. It looked like there was a Club X or an adult bookstore around the corner and someone was pulling up. Some pervert was in the back. So it's like the whole thing was just horrible. It kills a lot of the momentum that she could have had if she did go into the WWE. And I'm really happy that Ric Flair's feeling better because Ric Flair's daughter was there. So it just reminds me, Ric Flair is feeling better, and he's got a new T-shirt out. It says, "I'm not dead yet, motherfuckers." So
wow,
got to give it to the guy. But yeah, the whole thing was terrible. Ronda Rousey was terrible. Her crew was terrible. I haven't seen Shayna Baszler wrestle, but I guess she might be okay. Or maybe she's terrible. I don't know. So there you go.
I don't know. For me, yeah, it's one of those things. I know you mentioned you want to talk about on the show, and I was like, I did not give a fuck about this situation. Just because I thought Ronda Rousey was going to go to the WWE for such a long time, and I feel like it's been teased and dragged out, and it's like they got her now, but they didn't get her on their terms. It's like they got a different Ronda Rousey. It's not her at her peak. It's not when she was, you know, winning in the UFC and destroying everybody and sort of the media darling that she was. Now it's kind of like she's, you know, taking a massive step back from the spotlight. Nobody knows what's going on. Fight fans feel like she betrayed them and, you know, didn't really give anything. She hasn't spoken about the loss since. She's not the dominating force that she is. So when you see her drop that purse, and it's like, I wonder what message it sends and how people take it when it's like, you know, she exited the UFC in the way that she did. She never spoke about that loss, and it almost kind of gives that impression like, well, you know, she couldn't handle it in fighting, so now she's going over the WWE, which is obviously, you know, staged and choreographed. And I feel like after the way that, you know, it came off, that super cringe-worthy promo where, you know, her acting left a lot to be desired. I'm sure her agent's phone isn't blowing up with, you know, Hollywood studio movie offers saying, "Oh, we want to hire her." And it's a crazy situation where, you know, she was meant to be doing Roadhouse, and then that got pulled. Apparently, the rumors were that it was something to do with Ronda Rousey's acting, and, you know, this whole Hollywood career that we were expecting out of Ronda Rousey is just ground to a halt. So, I don't know. To me, it's just whatever, because she's not going to be a pro wrestler. She may maybe wrestle a match at Survivor Series. I believe they want to do the 4 Horsewomen versus the 4 Horsewomen. But if that's the case, she's not going on the road. That's why I don't care about this thing. She's not going to be going on the road after all that she's put her body through. You know, I would be surprised if she even worked like a Brock Lesnar type schedule. Like, even if she popped up here and there, she might work this program for the next month or so, or whenever Survivor Series is. And that's it. It's like a hobby thing for her. She's a big WWE fan. She's going in there to have fun. She's helping out her friends more than anything. You know, Shayna Baszler, and that's it. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if she sort of disappears afterwards. And I'm still waiting for the day, which probably will never come, when she talks about, you know, her losses in MMA.
And before we jump to Ben Askren, the worst thing, the most cringiest thing, we know she's going to be terrible if she does wrestle. We all know this. It's going to be horrible. But the fact is, and it's like Brock Lesnar. He does in pro wrestling. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but he does the Kimura as like one of his finishing moves. It's like so stupid. And you know that Ronda Rousey is going to have the armbar as her finisher. It's going to look terrible, tacky, and horrible. So I'm not really looking forward to it, but maybe like the old DX or the NWO can run in. It's just ridiculous these days. Maybe X-Pac can be in their group. I don't know.
I love it.
Because maybe they can change it to 5 Horsewomen. I don't know. You know, the 4 Horsemen have had a bit of a rough run. You got Steve Mongo in there. He was like an NFL player, and then the Chris Benoit, and he doesn't exist anymore, so who knows? We'll have to wait and see what happens. But anyway, let's go to Ben Askren, Casper, because you have some thoughts there before our program gets taken off the internet. You know, a lot of people talking about the man retiring 33 years young and, you know, never really being in the UFC, having a great, successful career outside it at one, and retiring on this note. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's got 1 fight left. He's going to be facing Shinya Aoki in his retirement fight. But it's interesting because obviously Askren being a welterweight, and then you get a guy who's, you know, spent most of his career at lightweight, and that's your retirement fight. And I guess the big question is, well, what do you make of Askren's career, you know, as it's about to wind down? Was it a good career? Will it be remembered? I feel like, look, I have a lot of respect for Ben Askren. I think he definitely could have, you know, made it in the UFC. Obviously, he chose not to. You know, it's not like he wasn't good enough. He certainly was good enough. I don't think that Ben will be remembered as one of the all-time greats. I think that, you know, in time, fans will sort of overlook him, and I say this with the utmost respect. I think he's sort of going to be forgotten when it comes to, you know, MMA fans. I think only the most hardcores will sort of, you know, look at him and talk about him as one of the best welterweights of all time. But because he never went to the UFC, we don't really know what his ceiling is. Obviously, he's supremely talented. a lot of potential. And it's so funny to say, oh, someone has potential when they're about to wrap up their career. But it's like, because he never competed against the best guys in the world, against the best welterweights. We know obviously they don't reside in one championship. You never really can say how good he was compared to the best welterweights. It's like, obviously he's undefeated, 17-0, but it's like, Hector Lombard had massive success in Bellator, was on like a 1,000,000 fight winning streak, and he's finding a really tough time in the middleweight division and the welterweight division in the UFC. Alistair Overeem, another guy who was just killing it, outside the UFC, K1 champion, Dream champion, and then, still hasn't achieved his goal and fulfilled his dream of being a UFC champion. So, the fact that Ben Askren never went over to the UFC, it's sort of, there are still a lot of questions about his career. But at the same time, you look at a guy who, is young, wrestling heavy style. I think with his personality, he could have been almost Chael Sonnen-like, talking a lot of shit, always interesting. I think the UFC would have promoted him well, and he would have made some, some good paydays. But I mean, the fact that, he's got this wrestling heavy style, didn't really take a lot of damage in his career, 33 years old, did everything his way, didn't want to go to the UFC because he didn't feel like they'd give him the respect that he deserved, didn't get along with Dana White. He's getting Lamborghinis from one championship for his second last fight. They're treating him like royalty, and yeah, he didn't get as many fights as he wanted in his career, spent a lot of time at inactivity, but I mean, coming out of the game unscathed, money in your pocket, he wants to do his wrestling academy and his businesses with his brother. I don't know, I think if you ask the casual fans what do you think of Ben Askren's career, they would say left a lot to be desired. But if you ask Ben, he did it his way, and he achieved all his goals, really. He did it his own way, got the respect that he wanted, made money, and came out relatively unscathed. That's a real rarity in MMA. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, look, he, like you said, he made good money. One's treated him well. He's done a lot for one in terms of getting them to where they are. So I'm sure he's proud of their relationship and what he's done there. And look, he walks away as the big question mark in the sport. A lot of people always wonder how would he have done if he went into the UFC? Would he have become champion? What would have happened? And in a lot of ways, that's kind of better than if you go into the UFC and possibly don't meet those expectations. So at the end of the day, him retiring without going to the UFC, I think creates this mystery, this puzzle, this thing that hardcore fans will talk about for the future. And I think I'm really happy for the fact that he was able to make money and still be a guy that was in headlines and in the spotlight outside of the UFC and did things on his own terms. So I agree with you. I think he would have been like a Chael Sonnen-esque persona. He's definitely a pretty funny guy when he talks on the mic and does the podcasts. And I mean, I'm excited to see what happens with him next. But, I am disappointed I never got to see him in the UFC, just like I'm disappointed I never got to see King Mo in the UFC. I'm very interested to see how they would have done. But at the same time, I'm really happy that, he's able to, like you said, go away, 33 years young, seemingly unhurt. I mean, it does seem like training has taken quite a bit out of him, but seemingly unhurt, hasn't taken too many shots and hits in his career when we've seen him in the ring. So it's good to see a nice sort of fairy tale ending. And who knows, like maybe this is the beginning of a new career for him and he's going to be known for something else after this. So it's good to see. Plus a Lamborghini, like, I don't think the UFC's handing out Lamborghinis to too many people unless your name's Conor McGregor or something like that. So I'm happy that he was able to find a good deal with one where they treated him with respect and gave him some money and gave him things like a Lamborghini.
And that's the thing. Yeah, you mentioned disappointed. Like me too, as a fan, like I wish we got to see Ben Askren in the UFC. And I guess both parties are sort of to blame, but I think it, you mentioned that Damon spoke about this on his podcast, and it brings up an interesting point. Is the UFC to blame? And Dana White, his lack of respect at times to fighters. You've spoken about it many times, obviously the Chris Cyborg situation. Even as recently as, a few months ago, there was him throwing Demetrius Johnson under the bus, throwing Tyron Woodley under the bus. Do you think that ultimately it really came down to the UFC that we never really saw Ben Askren, compete there?
Yeah, maybe. And I think it could have been the greatest thing that happened to him because, look, he had this great career at one. He made a lot of money. And even though a lot of people, including myself, are curious how he would have done in the welterweight division, a big part of me believes that it may not be as good as we believe he would have done. And, there's a lot of killers in the division. And you've mentioned all those names. You rattled off those names who have done so well outside the UFC. And when they've come in, really struggled. So looking at it, it could be a blessing in disguise that, Dana White turned him off from going to the UFC and he went to one. And look, at the end of the day, the UFC was fine and Ben Askren did really well outside the UFC. So Who knows? Maybe things happen for a reason. Maybe this played out a lot better than if he would have gone into the UFC, got in that fight with Johnny Hendricks, gotten beaten by Hendricks, beaten by a few other guys. And then, nobody would really be discussing, is he possibly, one of the greats of all time? We wouldn't have that legacy. So now, as he goes away, it's kind of, I like it. I think Ben is a really smart guy. He understands the value of not sticking around for too long and going at the right time. He's like a Jerry Seinfeld of MMA. He left while we still wanted to see what was going to happen and didn't overstay his welcome.
Yeah, going out on top like Seinfeld, that's obviously a great thing. I'm glad it worked out for Ben. I'm glad it worked out for the UFC and won championship. But I also feel like, did it really work out for the fans? And I think it's sort of a cautionary tale of, Dana White, the UFC, the way they sometimes are heavy-handed in their dealings with fighters. I mean, look, great. Ben's going out on a great career and fantastic, but I wouldn't want to see this repeated, obviously, in the future and have us, the fans, deprived of certain fights that we obviously want to see. But anyway, on that note, let's wrap this baby up. Let's wrap the show up. Before we do, just want to read out a couple of quick reviews. We haven't done it in a while. We love seeing your reviews on iTunes, guys. We really, really, really appreciate them. We were scrolling through them the other day, and we were laughing because we got some really funny ones. Here's one by a man named Fix the Controls from the United States. The title is Give These Cunts a Listen. I love it. Short, direct, straight to the point, a little bit aggressive. I like that. Big MMA fans like you and me giving great interviews and keeping you up to date on MMA news. Much appreciated to Fix the Controls. There's also another one from Nicholas Swallow. This is going back to July. Sexy MMA Podcast, 5 stars. That's the title. It might just be the accents, but they have sexy insight and sexy guests. Really appreciate it because obviously it takes a lot to get all the guests that we do every week, and obviously we are helped by a lot of great journalists, a lot of credible analysts, guys like Damon Martin, the guys from Flow Combat. We get guys like Luke Thomas on the show, and a whole bunch of other people that probably make us seem a lot better than we really are. So really appreciate it when you guys jump on iTunes, give us reviews, and obviously it helps the program because iTunes looks at it and says, hey, people are listening to this, people are reviewing this. And we got a ton of reviews at the moment, so we really, really appreciate you guys doing that. And if you are obliged, feel free to keep them coming.
Yeah, and a big thanks to you guys for doing it. And also, you mentioned journalist. A big congratulations as we wrap up to James Lynch, who had his first baby, or first baby that he knows of. It's good to see he put up a tweet saying that I'll be away for the next few weeks as I learn to be a great father. Excited for this new challenge. And this must be a big break for James Lynch. He usually pops out 200 interviews every hour. So good on James for being able to take a break. What an exciting time. Can't wait to see if his father skills are as good as his interview skills, which are fantastic. But anyway, guys, we're wrapping.
Just quickly on James Lynch, I remember International Fight Week, the one that you and I always moan about how crazy it was and how it was unlike any other fight week we've ever done. I remember James Lynch saying, well, like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? And he's like, I'm waking up at like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. I'm doing interviews, and then I'll meet you guys for all the other media activities. So,
Meanwhile, we're literally, I think during that trip, at one point, getting out of the bar as the sun comes up, yes, 2 hours sleep to go cover a major event. So good time. I believe it was at Hooters. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming on the program. Angel Hernandez, OSP, Tony Ferguson, Damon Martin for making the show what it was. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. Again, like Casper mentioned, let us know your thoughts via reviews. Jump on Twitter. Follow us at Submission AUS. Jump on Facebook. There's some fun videos there. Check them out. It's Facebook. Submission AUS, and we'll catch you guys next week with more Submission Radio. If you're in America, stay cool. If you're in Australia, I hope you guys can stay warm. Yeah. And wherever else you are, I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for tuning in.